Backpedaling, running out of time, spinning away, and nobody open. Now he flips it up into traffic and makes a mistake. Trying to force the play, and it's intercepted. BJ Mays rumbling down inside the 10.
This is 365 Sports.
Bowling Green with no timeouts. Nick Singleton. Touchdown, Penn State.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Klubnik, undaunted, unafraid, complete, Turner, touchdown!
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Why not?
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
Jennings on the play fake, slides it upfield. Matthew Hittner off to the races. Hittner at the 30, full speed, and the big tight end goes 75. It's a Pony Express.
Now here's David Smoke, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoke.
We are back to being sponsored by Smokeless Tobacco. Chaw. Yeah. What did they have in the Sandlot?
They had Big Chief.
Big Chief. Big Chief is our sponsor for today. Because we are smokeless. Craig and Smokey did not get to do Father's Day with the whole group, and so they're in Dallas or going to Dallas to hang out with Jennifer and Daniel and Oreo and the
whole gang.
Yeah, and their future grandchild / niece. So I'm here with Garrett. And we've got a really interesting show for you today. Zach Barnett joins us at 3:40. We'll talk about Texas State officially joining the Pac-12 and what that means all the way down the line, plus a couple other things that Zach's written about over the last couple of days. He's from footballscoop.com, frequent guest on the show. At 4 o'clock, we've already recorded this one, Stewart Mandel from The Athletic on Sacramento State and their very bizarre push kind of out of nowhere.
You got to respect it.
Yeah, to get in, but he kind of got into the details of where did this come from, and it's very nebulous, right? All where the money's coming from and all this and all that. So we talked about that. We also talked about college football playoff. John McClain will join us, and I'm mostly going to talk to him about this very, I think, underreported or underdiscussed NFL collusion thing. And it ultimately probably doesn't mean much in the grand scheme of things, but it's something that's going to be talked about. And the NFL and NFLPA tried to not let it out.
Right.
They wanted it to go under wraps. And part of the reason is because now there's going to be a lot of players that are like, well, should I sue the league because of this? And so that's why they didn't want to. And then at 5 o'clock on Tuesday this week, I got a chance to talk to a guy I've always admired in media, a guy I've always liked. I always thought he did a great job. He's a huge college football and college sports fan. Chuck Todd, former host of Meet the Press. It was a great conversation, mostly about college sports and, potential government involvement and how that works. Nobody would kind of understand it or how to break it down better than him. I've always admired Chuck Todd. I think he did a great job on Meet the Press, taking over. Well, I think David Gregory was before him for a little bit. And then, of course, he was like Tim Russard's right-hand man early in his career. And there was no better host of anything news-wise than Tim Russard, in my opinion. He talks about Brokaw in this thing, who was my favorite news anchor of all time. They'll never be that's who I grew up with. Every time I watch the news now, I'm just like, I wish Brokaw was there.
Yeah.
I like Brokaw rather. That's what I like,
the classics.
Yeah. Dan Rather was like, and now the election's called for. I
always felt like with those two broadcasters, it felt the same as growing up. You had your Chili's people and your Applebee's people, right?
Yeah.
Like you had your Saturday Night Live and your Mad TV. I always felt like it was the same kind of diagram with that when you were choosing.
So we talked a little bit about that stuff, but mostly about his passion for college athletics. And we're both big. He's a Hurricane who married a Seminole. I'm a Seminole who, we I think we came to a reasonable public detente on, Florida State and Miami don't like each other, but we respect each other. We have no respect for Florida.
Disdain.
Yes, that's the deal. We both have no respect for Florida. I wish all the teams played each other every year. Now,
they should.
FSU plays both. And they should always play both. And then, but Florida, spare your cancer, the Miami series. And it comes up and then it goes away. And it comes up and it goes away.
Well, I also think Miami not being good for as long as it really since that rivalry went away, I think kind of played into it. Because why would Florida want to go out of their way to play a team who's not necessarily going to benefit them. Like, I understand it's a rivalry and everything.
Now, look, when Spurrier dropped it, Miami was still very good.
They were really good, and they were kicking their ass. That was different. But, like, now Miami's kind of went to the abyss, and Florida's been like, well, I mean, it's not really – we don't
that's the thing is, like, now – like, before it wasn't embarrassing to lose to them.
No.
Now, now it's not either. I think, they've kind of righted the ship, but – now it's embarrassing, right? Like, or then it was embarrassing forever to be like, oh, well, but, we'll see. That's all stuff we talk about in the interview. It's very long. He spent way more time than I thought I'd have with him, but he was awesome. We're good friends now. Like, it's just.
You're going to be joining him talking politics, right?
Yeah, no, I
mean,
hope.
you pitched it.
I pitched it. Look, he is the opposite side of the coin. I'm a sports guy who really understands politics and likes politics. Or, I mean, I don't know if I like it.
It's your thing. You're into it.
It's like I love history, and it's all part of it. All goes together. I don't know if I like it right now. I
don't think anybody.
No,
in the world
like if I had to go
now.
to the politics restaurant, I would choose any other, like not every other era, but like there'd be other ones that I would choose over this. Like honestly, I'd rather be sitting with Roosevelt, with FDR, either Roosevelt right now than anything we've had in the last like 15, 20 years. But anyhow, let's get to the smokestack. But he is to say that he's a politics guy who loves sports. Right. So we're the opposite sides of the coin, so to speak. So, really was interesting. And I can't wait for you guys to see, that interview. He has a lot of, thoughts and opinions and ways to like, what he would do to the college football system and all of that. So anyway, let's get into it. Texas State is amid the final steps of accepting the invitation to the Pac-12. It has initiated the process of calling a board meeting for Monday to execute the acceptance. Texas State began alerting Sun Belt officials of its formal offer and plans to accept. They have to get this done by Tuesday, right? Mm-hmm. So, because Monday's the 30th. Right. So they'll accept, and then they'll tell the Sun Belt that they're going to leave, and then they have less of a buyout, right? An exit fee on the way out. Had they waited till Tuesday, then they would have had to pay the full exit fee, which is I think $5 to $8 million or something like that. We also talked to Stewart Mandel about this as well, but. This is the ever-changing landscape. Like, eventually, I'm wondering, like, when I think about this, like, what conference is eventually going to go away? Right. Like, completely. There's going to be one that eventually dissipates because they're moving around so much. Unless, like, the FBS, splits into two tiers, then maybe they would stick around. But, even then, like, how do you remain competitive? How do you compete for that one playoff spot that all of you are competing for? It's every team in the group of six, the G6 is competing for the one spot they can get. Right. The one that they may get. So how do you make sure that you're in a situation that gives you the best opportunity to do that is ever morphing? Right. That's where I think most about this with Texas State is, this new Pac-12 probably gives you a better opportunity given the schools that are in it than most of the other leagues. Right.
Well, it's supposedly, but I also think from this angle, I think that what UNLV is doing is smart because they're sitting pat, and they're saying, okay, y'all run and start the new Big 12. We're going to be the big dog here in the Mountain West. Yeah. And I think it's also smart when you look at that program like Tulane, who's staying where they're at right now, because you have easier paths to win your conference than what you're going to have to run through with the Pac. And this is all about becoming the highest seeded in that. So I think that they're in better positions right now to make the move to get in the playoff than you are seeing maybe a Texas State or a Boise who have more likely chance to get beaten in conference play now because your conference is tougher than usual. So I think it's kind of a double-edged sword with that. But it's going to be fascinating to see how this plays out. But I don't think this necessarily guarantees that you're going to see a team out of the Pac-12 automatically grab that spot every single year. Like, I think that's their mindset going into this.
Now, what I'll tell you is I still think the American is a better league than this new Pac-12.
See, I can't even remember all the teams in the American.
Okay. So when you have, and look, these schools like UAB, Eastern Carolina, FAU, Memphis, Charlotte, North Texas, Rice, USF, Temple, UTSA, Tulane, Tulsa, and Wichita State. And again, that's different sports,
right.
Obviously, but like throughout. But I still think and obviously it's a bigger league, 13 full member institutions.
Right.
Wichita State is the only non-football member. They don't have football at Wichita State. They're a basketball and baseball school. Go Shockers. But they have 12 football, right. 12 football teams who have done some stuff, like they've all, like, everybody, depending on how long ago it was. But, when you look at ECU's been pretty good lately.
They're always good. Yeah.
They're a tough team to play. Memphis has been pretty good. North Texas has been pretty good. USF has been pretty good. UTSA has been pretty good. Tulane's been pretty good. Tulsa's been pretty good.
Yeah, I would take that conference over the pack.
UAB was gone and then back, and now the new Pac-12. Yeah, I mean, look, Boise State is a G6 blue blood, right? Like, right. They are.
That's who they're branding this around.
They're one of the best athletic departments at that level. They continue to be. They have been for a long time. They really push it. They're one of the most consistent football programs. They win most of the time. Fresno State's been kind of slept on,
but they've been gone.
But they're consistently pretty good.
Yeah, when they have a car at quarterback.
Yeah, but or Kalen DeBoer is their coach, or they've had good runs. Fresno State, right. San Diego State, nah. Again, like that. They're my example of why location doesn't matter when it comes to recruiting, right. Because if that was the case, San Diego State would. I mean, all they would have to do is be like, "Hey, Arch Manning, San Diego State here." Exactly. You'd be like, "No problem, I'll be there, and I'll be there." Done. Mm-hmm. Hey, Tristan Keys. I know that you've been going to places like Baton Rouge and College Station, but have you ever seen the coastline in La Jolla? Oh, okay. Why don't you come on out and just visit? Then they would do that, but they don't. Again, so there are and again, Wazoo and Oregon State. Are good college football programs. Right. They're good college football programs. Are they great college football programs? Not yet. But again, they're good. They're good. They care. They do. I think the new Pac-12, the good news about them is they have 8 football schools that care.
It's like the Big 12, because you actually have everybody who's on the same page. You have everybody who's essentially looking each other eye to eye. I think Boise and probably Texas State have probably standing on their tiptoes when they're doing that. But for the most part, you have people who are of the same like mind, the same goal, and the same direction with it. So from that aspect, I think this new Pac-12 is very similar to what we see the Big 12 become. But it's going to be interesting to see how this does, because I wasn't even thinking about that with the Conference USA and how good that was with it being stacked up. But
and so in Conference USA now, I mean, they're losing Louisiana Tech.
Right.
They're going to the Sun Belt. The Sun Belt is now all of a sudden becoming better than Conference USA. Conference USA and the Mountain West they're in weird spots, right? So and then we'll see where Tarleton winds up.
Right. Fascinating.
They're trying to move, around. They've been doing that, what goes on there. So, okay. In 2026, 7 FBS conferences will have a footprint in Texas.
I was thinking about this yesterday. I'm glad somebody did this.
Yes. The Pac-12, Conference USA, the Mountain West, the Big 12, the American, the SEC, and the ACC. Now, the weirdest ones, obviously, name-wise, would be the Pacific Conference and the Atlantic Conference, since Texas is not Atlantic or Pacific. I mean, if there was the Gulf Conference, we have that.
Yeah.
But by boat or by car, it takes a long time to get to either one. So, that's funny to me, but this shows you how Texas is important to recruiting, to television, to all these things, because we have population, we have good football here, and all those things. I don't think, and I'm not knocking Texas State. I think it's a really good addition for the Pac-12. I think it gives them an opportunity to spread their wings and fly a little bit. But, is is Austin, San Antonio, San Marcos TV market going to explode for the Pac-12? No, it's not, but it's a good conference that should produce good games. That's what matters. How good can you be? How good are your games? What kind of players do you have? Mm-hmm. Can you get, a couple guys in the NFL each year?
Right.
Like that's where I'm at. If I'm the American, maybe a little bit more than that because they're a little bit more established in a lot of the teams. But look, Boise State's got 4 or 5 guys in the league pretty much every year. Every year. Yeah, they'll have like one superstar like Ashton Genty, but then there's a lot of guys that, have really long, good careers like DeMarcus Lawrence or, the Cowboys have made like tons of Boise State guys.
Boise West.
They love it. Yeah. No, they're not going to stop loving it. They know what you're getting when you get to Boise State. So like that, like make yourself that, like Fresno State it could be that like the problem with Fresno State is Boise State keeps their coaches longer.
Right.
Fresno State, they'll hit on a coach and everybody's like, oh, if you can win out in that's kind of the middle of nowhere, California.
Yeah, it is.
The area of it. It's very beautiful.
It's
the
cool,
valley.
Yeah.
It's very pretty.
Orchards and all that.
Yeah,
awesome.
It's very pretty. But it's not San Francisco, LA, San Diego, it's Sacramento. It's none of those places, So it's kind of out in the parts of California that are more spacious.
Right.
So I think they get a little slept on a lot of time, but they're a very good school. I mean, it's very good. They have an athletic director we had on the show a couple weeks ago, super enthusiastic about the future of their program in the new Pac-12. So, I think that like you have to get to like right now, how good can you be within your can you reach all your limitations, right? Can you exceed, can you challenge, push those so that you can help this grow? The problem is that all these schools want to grow. But there are, big conferences that are the weed eaters that are constantly coming in and weeds. That's a negative term. They're just like mowing down all the grass around them. Like that's, they're just, okay, well, oh, look at that over there. All right. We like that guy. We have more money than them. Like, hey, how about you come play in Tuscaloosa? Okay, great. Yeah. So those are hey, Washington's like, hey, we're going to get this coach from Fresno State. It's going to be great. He's going to take over for, Jimmy Lake, who was bad, and we probably shouldn't have hired that guy. And, we hit on this guy who's come up from really small schools. And then the minute that he was really good at Washington.
Yeah, gone.
Washington, a gigantic powerhouse of a school with a great history. There's always somebody bigger until you're Alabama, right?
Yep.
So anyway, moving on. I come to you with this is a mixed bag of news. The Big 12 ADs and coaches have decided to do away with the league's preseason media poll. Big 12 will continue its preseason all league teams, which is pretty hard in and of itself, I'll tell you.
Yes.
Because here's the problem with it is they make you pick 5 offensive linemen, not a center and a guard and 2 guards and 2 tackles. You have to pick 5 offensive linemen, and you got to pick 3 wide receivers and 2 tight ends and a friggin' fullback, who uses the fullback anymore? Much to my chagrin. I'm very pro fullback, but I have to call SID to do that. I have to call SIDs and go, do you guys have a fullback?
Yeah.
Or with tight ends, it's become easier with tight ends.
No, at that position, the evolution of it's changed.
Yeah, but used to be, I would just be like, okay, who are the schools that use the tight end? Iowa State, Oklahoma, and Texas all use a tight end. Baylor and Tech and all these teams don't really. Now it's changed a little bit. Yeah. There is guys are more hybrid tight end wide receivers.
Michael Trigg and Baylor.
Yeah, exactly. So now it's been easier, but when they were in the spread all the time and you would go and look up the stats of which tight end had the most passes, I remember one year it was Grant Calcaterra had 40 receptions. The next guy had 10.
Oh my God.
It was Grant Calcaterra, Charlie Kohler or something like that. Oklahoma's tight end, Iowa State's tight end, and we had to have a third tight end. And it was 40 receptions and 38 receptions. And they each had a good chunk of touchdowns, right? In those. And then the third guy was 10. And then the fourth guy was 7.
Right.
So I got to call SIDs and be like, hey, which of these guys are really good blockers? And so then they'll have to, let me go ask the coaches. So they go and ask the coach and be like, hey, this guy really needs to be mentioned because he does the dirty work. He does the dirty work. He's an excellent blocker. He's an NFL player. Just put him on the list. And I hate doing that but how am I supposed to know?
You're not.
Those things. Because I'm not going to sit down and watch, 10 teams, much less 16, to find out who the third best tight end is in the league that didn't throw to him. But now things have changed, so it's easier. But no media poll. And last year, Big 12 Arizona State was selected 16th. Big 12 joins the Big 10 as the only conferences without a league preseason poll. Big 12 media days will be there in 10 days or so, 10, 12 days. Yep. So looking forward to it. We will be there loud and proud. But to this end, Garrett, we lost our privileges last year.
We did.
I
think everybody did.
I'm not mad about this at all.
I would rather do the poll than do the player thing.
I would too. In fact, like if you're going to take something away from me, just take it all.
Right.
Like you took away one that was really hard. It's like a teacher saying, hey, we're not going to have a pop quiz, but we're going to have a full test. And you're like, all right. I mean, this is the easy one, but that's probably why I almost cursed really badly there. We all screwed it up. But we picked Arizona State 16th.
But
here's the thing.
Did.
Hey, here's not everybody.
Well, you had right to do it.
I picked them 14th. So
who'd you have last? Was like UCF?
Houston. Houston last.
Okay.
Yeah, Houston last. So anyway, I had Houston last.
So okay, who do you have last? Who would you have last this year?
UCF.
Okay.
I just don't know enough about them.
Right.
I also I've told you, I don't think Oklahoma State's going to be very high above last.
Yeah, I don't.
I think too much change has happened, and I don't think Mike Gundy's the kind of guy who just gets over it.
No.
No. This is the first real, oh crap, is it time kind of thing? I'll compare it to Gary Patterson.
Very similar.
It's very similar to where you just hit a point where maybe you're at the
tapped out.
You're you've done anything you can do in one spot.
Yeah.
Maybe you need to move. But I in this, I don't know. So we'll see what happens, but I'm glad that we don't do this. And Smokey made the great point. Thanks for saving us from the embarrassment.
For real.
Because, we do all everybody does a podcast. We're all on everybody's podcasts. We're doing this. And then when somebody calls me up and says, well, what did you think? I'm like, look, I'll tell you. When you have to admitting you're wrong in any portion of life, but in this business in particular, where we're all fat gas bags who are trying to say that we're smarter than everybody else, it's really hard to be like, all right, yes, no, I
swallow it.
Yeah, I didn't, I'd never seen Sam Levitt play. So how was I supposed to know that he was the truth? I ranked him 14th because I really like Cam Scatteraboo, but I thought that's all they had. And he's like, you didn't know anything about Jordan Tyson? Did you?
No.
Huh? What are you, some kind of psychic?
I don't think there were very many people. I bet a lot of Arizona State people weren't even really watching them the past few years because of the disservice Herm Edwards and their president and everything
AD,
did to them.
Yeah. No, why would I think that, but Kenny Dillingham was coaching with a rage.
He's bad, man.
Yeah. With a rage to him. So, and here's the thing. I want to pick BYU high this year, but I don't know what's going to happen with Jake Retzlaff.
Yeah, that's fair.
So I don't know. And
see, I think we were talking about this last week. I said I would have taken Kansas State, but the more I thought about it, I think I would have to go with Iowa State if I was doing it. I really like what Iowa State has done.
Look, I know
they've never won, but it wouldn't shock me if it was like Iowa State and Tech. Shooting it out
that's
there.
Probably what my top would have been be Tech and Iowa State, Baylor, Kansas State, Kansas, Utah, or probably my TCU. That's probably the top of my league. West Virginia and UCF might get picked towards the end because I think they've had the most turnover. Mm-hmm. Although I wouldn't be surprised to be dead wrong on those. Oklahoma State, like I said, I'm not big on. BYU, I'm kind of confused about because of all that. Right. I'm not a huge believer in Arizona, so they'd be towards the end. If Arizona State would still be up towards the top for me too, though. So again, I've got, I'm not taking them out of it. I think they're going to be really good again. So but it depends on the schedule. It depends on who's better, who's a little better, and who's a little worse.
Right. See,
It doesn't have to be these gigantic pendulum swings.
See, I think Baylor has I legitimately think Baylor has what it takes to win the championship. But at the same time, I'm so nervous about their wide receiver core and who's actually going to step up to help Josh Cameron that's the only thing that's got me hesitant to put them up top, because if you had more depth at wide receiver, I think you could easily put them at the front runner because of everything they have. And when you have Keaton Thomas back on defense and everything, Sawyer's so good. But I just think there's too many question marks at receiver for me to put Baylor up at number one. But with the additions that Iowa State has brought in, along with Rocco Beck and everybody coming back, I really like what the Cyclones have.
Okay. Garrett, as an improv comic, I feel it incumbent upon me to improv the rankings since we won't have to do them. And it's not official. It's not going to be on paper. This is just me. This is just me riffing.
All right.
This is just me bebopping and scatting.
Bebopping and scatting.
It's jazz. This is
Miles Davis.
Yes. It's the notes I'm not going to play that are really going to hit.
All right,
so,
Kenny G.
okay. Right now, I'm going to say Texas Tech, Arizona State. Okay, that's 1 and 2. I'm going to have to keep counting so I don't lose my spot with 16 teams. This is so much easier with 10.
Yeah.
Iowa State, Baylor.
Okay.
Kansas State.
Okay.
TCU, Utah. I'm at 7.
That's fair.
Okay.
There's no real discrepancies here for me.
Yes. Kansas.
Okay.
All right. Colorado. I mean, we're at 9 right now.
Yeah, I know. But,
so now we're going to be splitting hairs. You know what? I'm going to say Houston. Houston, then Colorado at 10.
That's all right. I'm with you on that one.
Okay. BYU at 11, but I would move them up to 7th.
They could be 7 if you knew Ratzlaff was going to be there all year.
7th or 6th. They're the top 7 or 8. These are the teams that are in contention. So I'm going to say BYU 11th right now because I don't know.
Correct.
I would have them higher. I've already said their name. I probably wouldn't have said Colorado yet. So they're there.
Okay.
With an asterisk. Okay, that's 11th. So 12th, I'm going to say Arizona. 12th, I'm going to say West Virginia.
Yeah.
13th, Arizona. 14th, Oklahoma, Cincinnati. No. You know what? Here, hold on. 11th, BYU. 12th, Cincinnati.
Okay.
13th, Arizona.
Okay.
14th, Oklahoma State.
All right.
15th, West Virginia, and 16th, UCF.
Okay, I'm with you on most of that. I think West Virginia is way too low.
Okay.
I would put West Virginia up near the 10 mark. Maybe flip them with Cincy. Not necessarily put Cincy down that far, but that's the only real discrepancies I have with that. I think the bottom of the barrel of the Big 12 this year is going to be either Arizona or probably UCF, just because I don't trust them. I think Rich Rod, I like what he's done. I think he can get them about middle of the pack. I don't think he can get them out of the middle of the pack this year in the Big 12, but I think West Virginia could actually cause some chaos in this conference with him. And Arizona, I think Arizona's lost too much to really. I'm just so concerned about them, man.
Again,
you can't.
The
you
difference
have
between
talent.
The difference between 11 and 16 in this league,
it's not much.
It's not much.
Hairs.
As well, the difference between 1 and 7 to me
the same thing.
Could be really close because these teams are really close together, which is why it's really hard to pick.
It's fun,
which is why I'm glad it was fun to do this.
Yeah.
But this is why I'm glad that I don't have to sign a piece of paper and be like, this is what I think.
Yep.
I am a college football academic, and all you will bow to my knowledge. No. Now I can just say this and goof around and be like, yeah, I was just improving. I wasn't really, doing it.
Right.
Like this is just an exercise
to
show you how difficult it is. Because even you saw me in that time kind of grasping at things to realize, BYU, I thought the whole time I've got to rank all these teams and I get BYU the kind of the highest.
Yeah.
So I should probably put them at 10th and then Colorado. See, I'm already moving stuff
BYU
around on the
to
deck.
Me is without a doubt above Colorado.
Yeah,
like,
they're above Colorado. They're above Colorado. They're above Colorado. If they have to play a different quarterback, is that going to work out for them?
That's fair. Man, I think they can make it work. I think Kalani could come up with something that can make it.
And we're pretending like everybody knew that Jake Retzlaff was going to be good last year. He didn't have the job until the week before.
He was good compared to what they had the past couple of years. He wasn't Jaron Hall out there or nothing, but he was pretty good.
No, he wasn't Taysom Hill.
No,
he wasn't. Coy Detmer played at Colorado. Ty Detmer. I know I was going to say both the Detmer brothers, but Coy didn't play at BYU. Ty did. He wasn't Steve Young or Jim McMahon or Zach Wilson.
Yeah,
no, he wasn't those guys. So, yeah, it's not an easy thing to do.
No, it's fun.
And then, like, as a group, like, here's the thing: when you have one person that, like, Ari had a really wacky ballot a couple years ago, and it turned out
he had it right.
He had it right. He had a red Oklahoma State at the top.
Yeah.
He had it right. But if he had been wrong, like everybody, but now, like, collectively, we were all bad.
Oh yeah.
We were all bad. Utah's going to win it. Kansas State's going to come in second. Arizona State and Iowa State.
Yep.
That's what happened. So, no. Yeah, it's
good times.
It's tough. Let's go ahead and skip this Marcelo thing. I don't think we have time for me to, like, break it all completely down that he did. But it was a really good column on CBS Sports, like, kind of breaking down the Big Ten SEC, lovers quarrel. Yeah, the beef. The ACC, the first time in their history that they've had both the top pick in the NFL draft and the NBA draft.
It's pretty cool.
And here's the problem. Most of the time they've had the top pick in the NBA draft, it's been a Duke player.
Yep.
So, so it's definitely not going to be them having the same one. Like, that's happened a couple times where the same schools had the top pick in both. No. I think Oklahoma had it, like Blake Griffin and Sam Bradford, I think.
It's going to be rare for somebody to do that.
Yeah. So was Blake Griffin? I don't know, whatever it was. But, like, it's tough. But, yeah, to get it, like, the SEC, though, because they have, like.
They might be able to do it now.
With, like when you have Kentucky and Alabama.
Like, I think Bama would be able to pull that off.
No, I'm talking, like, I mean, this is Cam Ward and Cooper Flagg, so it's Miami and Duke. So the SEC has much better football schools than the ACC does. And even though now, like, just now their basketball has turned to a place where it's beyond the level of the ACC as we currently sit. But back in the day, even they still had teams like Kentucky that were putting out, top draft picks all the time, and things like that. So they always had, enough basketball to have that happen.
Right.
The Big Ten, same thing.
Hell, the Big 12.
The Big 12.
Like, Kansas could have put somebody out. You could have had Texas Texas choked because they never put out damn draft picks.
Yeah.
But you could have had Oklahoma or somebody put out. You could have.
But the first time for the ACC.
Yeah.
Think about that. Like, Miami, Florida State, Clemson, like all these elite, really high draft picks that they've had. And then when you think about Duke and North Carolina and the basketball history of the ACC, Syracuse has been in for a long time now. Wake Forest, you had Tim Duncan, like all these things. This is the first time that the ACC has had that happen to them in their history.
Especially when you think about the talent, when you were naming off all the teams right there in the basketball, it's like football. I was just thinking of Julius Peppers. Like North Carolina they could have had the, what I'm saying? You could have had the double dip there. But no, this is pretty cool for the ACC. I think it's good for college athletics as a whole when everybody's everything's trying to shift towards two people taking things over. And you see the parity is spread out because of the transfer portal and, just elite recruiting or getting your money right if you're Duke in a situation for a Cooper Flagg. No, I think this is good for the ACC.
Yeah. No. Where else is Cooper Flagg from Maine going to go, though? Is he really going to go anywhere?
You can get, honestly.
Like, that guy, he's out of the Duke catalog.
He is. Like, he's one of the few Duke players that I didn't really have a problem with. I actually respect it. I hate most of those Duke guys. They're just, God, they're asses, man.
So did you see the 30 for 30? I hate Christian Laettner.
Yes.
Did you hated Christian Laettner?
I was too young to really at the time when it was going on. I was too young to fully embrace the hate.
I didn't hate him.
Right.
I didn't have any feeling
I think the fact,
about it.
I think if he wouldn't have made that team, if he wouldn't have made the dream, I think that played a lot into it too, because there were better options and he was just the little pretty boy that was just right there that kind of got scooped along for the ride.
He was there and not Shaq.
Yes.
That's the thing I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. But to be honest, like he was not there to play.
No, he was just there because he was he was like Caitlin Clark. Everybody knew his name at the moment because of the play in the tournament.
But they also needed a guy who was, I think, who could move a little faster.
Exactly.
Who was more like the European players, because there's only one Shaq.
Yeah.
Like Shaq only helps you, like, especially when he's the same age there. He's 19 or whatever, 20. You know, look, Shaq probably should have been on the dream team. And had it been a year later, he would have been.
Yeah.
You know, but since it came down to like, yeah, I get it. But, you know, yeah. I don't think you should have been on the dream team. Should have been me.
I agree with you, Shaq.
Man, Shaq, we didn't need you. Where's in Barcelona? You ever been to Barcelona, Shaq? You ain't never been to Barcelona. You can't speak Spanish. You eat paella, Shaq? You don't even know what's in paella. It's like shrimp and peas and stuff. Was that pretty good?
That was actually pretty good.
Shaq, you just got to go to a bullfight and run after the matador.
Man, I would love to see that. Yeah, man, he wouldn't last long in a bull ring. Shaq would not last long in a bull ring.
Charles, you know, I don't run after red things. If I did, I'd run through the wall of every Papa John's. So, no. Anyway, I hope that was good. Like, it sounds good in my head.
It does, no, you pulled it off pretty good.
Okay.
I'll tell you if you didn't.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. Tell me, like, the Bartlett's terrible. But, yeah. No, I think I've got Barkley and Shaq done pretty well. You know, it's tough. I wish I could do Kenny Smith.
Ooh.
But he doesn't really have that.
Yeah, he doesn't have,
He's got a bit of it, like an accent, but like it's not, you know, like he doesn't have a distinctive speaking pattern.
He doesn't stand out. Yeah. It's not like,
you know why? Because he's just normal.
Yeah. Like, he's just a normal dude.
He's the normal one. He's not the crazy guys on the other end.
He's like sandwiched in between the psychos.
He's the one who's like, golly. Okay, guys. Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
When you get to a half tank, no. Shaq, that don't make no sense. You can't do math. How are you a billionaire? So, all right. From Sham Sharania, St. John star R.J. Lewis Jr. has agreed to a two-way contract with the Jazz. The reason I bring up R.J. Lewis is he was benched very publicly in the NCAA tournament by Rick Pitino.
He was.
And Rick Pitino did not try and soften the blow when asked about it. You know, like, yeah, his effort wasn't there. I benched him, you know, and all that. And it probably, I mean, his effort or that not having, who was probably the best overall player on that St. John's team,
right
down the stretch of that game, cost him the game.
Okay. My only counter to this would be, and look, Rick Pitino is a Hall of Fame coach. I'm not, basketball is not my wheelhouse, but the dude hated on Walter Clayton.
Yeah. And
he went and won a natty with Florida almost single-handedly. So I think Lewis could be fine in this situation if things play out similar. That's where I'm a little hesitant on this about like putting a negative impact on him being benched when you see a similar situation play out the year before and Walter Clayton go on to have the season he had and now potentially go on and have success in the NBA as well.
Yeah. So look, and look, I wish him the best of luck. I was kind of hoping that he would go back to college and kind of prove everybody wrong.
That would have been cool.
It would have been cool.
Made a bag too.
Yeah. I mean, he would have made it. I don't think he ever really, he put his name in the portal.
Right.
But I don't think he ever really intended to exercise that all that much. So one more thing before we go. The supplemental draft, second year in a row, it's been canceled by the NFL. This is something that I think, you know, a lot of these guys, they run out of eligibility, either academic or otherwise. They lose an eligibility hearing. Well, that doesn't happen anymore in college football. And there's NIL. So no one's doing that. So now there's no supplemental NFL draft. Some of the more popular NFL supplemental picks, Josh Gordon, most recently, Bernie Kosar was a supplemental pick out of Miami. Also a supplemental pick out of Miami. Former Cowboys quarterback Steve Walsh was a supplemental pick. And actually, in 1989, he was the only quarterback who won a game.
Oh, yeah.
He started the game that they won. I believe they beat the
Washington.
They beat Washington. They beat Washington. They beat Washington. He then went on to play for the Saints later. But Troy Aikman winless his first year. Had some injuries and all that, but Steve Walsh was the quarterback who beat Washington.
Well, screw you,
he was
Steve Walsh.
he was the first pick of the supplemental draft because the Cowboys had it, and Jimmy Johnson was his coach in college and said, "Look, this is a good idea. I could just have this guy up here. He already knows what I kind of want out of him." That's going to do it for the first segment. Zach Barnett, Football Scoop, comes up next. This is 365 Sports.
Employee Pricing Plus is back at Allen Samuels in Waco, and the deals are insane. Get a 2025 Ram 1500 Laramie Crew Cab. Your choice, 1.9 for 72 months, or $12,000 off and 3.9 for 72 months, or a flat-out $16,000 off MSRP. Wow! Ford, GM, or Toyota owner, take $1,500 more off only at Allen Samuels.
Come by, let's be friends.
I'll never get used to this.
Whatever it is you wrangle, whatever seeds you sow, no matter what you nurture or what you choose to grow, at Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, we're proud to protect all Texans.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow at GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
Last call for Employee Pricing Plus at Allen Samuels in Waco. Get a beast of a truck with a Ram 1-ton 4x4 Cummins diesel for just $52,995. Or go off-road with the Jeep Wrangler Rubicon and save $15,000 off MSRP. Only 2 left. Prefer an SUV? Get a 2025 Jeep Grand Cherokee for $10,000 off MSRP. Even better, a 2025 Jeep Compass Latitude 4x4 for just $26,700. Visit Allen Samuels in Waco.
Come by, let's be friends.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Welcome back, Paul Catalina and our good friend Zach Barnett, footballscoop.com. Zach, thanks as always for hopping on. Today, Texas State starts that process, I guess, officially of moving to the Pac, board meeting on Monday, and then they'll accept the invitation and not pay as much money as if they waited till Tuesday and all these things that they have to do. What is your feeling on what this means for Texas State, for that new Pac-12, and for the Sun Belt and the domino effect of everything that happens after?
Great question. I think for Texas State, it's a moment of recognition. Even though we can all agree that the Pac-12 is not what we all grew up with, that name still means something. And to the layman that doesn't follow college sports the way we do, leaving the Sun Belt for the Pac-12, it's that moment that, hey, what you've done, what you've accomplished matters. You mean something at this level of college football. Even though the Sun Belt has done a great job in these last decade of, clearly surpassing Conference USA. I mean, I was reading a quote from Louisiana Tech's AD from just 5 years ago, kind of laughing at the idea of Louisiana Tech ever joining that conference, because he was like, well, they're going to want to join the Sun Belt schools are going to want to join the Conference USA, and now Conference USA schools are joining the Sun Belt. So I don't think it's going to be that great. It's not going to be an enormous leap football-wise from the Sun Belt to the Pac-12, because the Sun Belt is a very competitive league. But I think from brand recognition, it means a lot. And it's going to mean a lot for Texas State to have Oregon State, Washington State, Boise State, Fresno State, had all those schools come to San Marcos and play football, basketball, baseball games.
So Louisiana Tech now moves into the Sun Belt, which is that's a fun league. You mentioned it. They've been pretty good. They kind of take the Texas State spot where I guess they'll intend to move into the Sun Belt. So Conference USA and the Mountain West, to me, are these two leagues that are kind of stuck now, aren't they? Like, do they have to ask themselves, like, what do we do?
I think what they do is from year to year, they do their best to survive. And Conference USA in particular has arguably been the biggest loser outside of the Big East and the Pac-12 from this last 20 years of conference realignment. I mean, they were the American before the American. They were easily the top group of five league, even though we didn't really have that term, east of the Mississippi when it came into being, when they had Houston, Louisville, Cincinnati, UCF. So now it's trying to build some semblance of continuity. Although you've lost UTEP, now you're about to lose Louisiana Tech. Finding schools that want to be there. Western Kentucky, I believe, is their longest standing member now. I don't know exactly how long they've been there. Don't force me to answer, but I'm going to say they've been there 10-ish, 15, somewhere in that range. So it's finding schools that want to be in your conference. I mean, Delaware is set to join. Missouri State is set to join Conference USA, simply because that's what they need to do to survive.
What do you think about Sacramento State hiring Jeffrey Kessler? I talked to Stewart Mandel earlier, right after you're done. We're going to play that interview. And they're trying to just money whip their way in, but nobody knows where the money is coming from.
Yeah, I mean, I got a big kick out of their story that they had $35 million committed to NIL, once they got into the Pac-12, and obviously the Pac-12 is not happening. I think they've decided that they can just kind of bluster their way into FBS, and so far it has not worked. And a lot of FCS schools are kind of pointing and laughing at them, because it's not like this is North Dakota State that's decided we're too good to play in FCS. If North Dakota State decided that, everyone would be like, yeah, I see where you're coming from. Sacramento State had a very, very brief moment of success under Troy Taylor, who then went to Stanford, is no longer there. They play in a basketball arena that's smaller than most 3A high schools, certainly smaller than most every 4A high school in Texas. This is a program that's just cited, not wrongly, but we are the largest metro market in the country without NFL or FBS football, so we're going to go make that happen, and we have the money to do so. But they don't have the support of anyone else outside of Sacramento, and they've decided that they don't really need that. As long as they have Jeffrey Kessler on their side, then they can make it happen. And so the NCAA denied their waiver, although it approved Liberty's waiver 2017, that Liberty joined FBS without a conference and now is in Conference USA. They decided to not let Sacramento State do the same. They've hired Jeffrey Kessler, as you mentioned. I'm sure Stewart has better insight into this, but I believe their argument is probably going to be on the lines of, well, Fresno State San Jose State, San Diego State, they're all Cal State schools just like us. They don't have the right to deny us membership to their conference. And I don't have any idea if that strategy is going to work.
Yeah, it's so very bizarre what they're trying to do, and it's one of those things like I kind of get it, like I get that you like want to do this, but there's no guarantee that this money's going to all come back to you either when you spend it.
Yeah, and I was reading Stewart's story today that said that they have $300 million is what he said committed to building a new stadium. And once they get their new stadium, they'll get to FBS. And the quote from the president was, "Our media deals will stop being in the hundreds of thousands and start being in the millions." And I realize it's funny money we're dealing with, and the stadium money would come out of different buckets and then the athletic department money and all that stuff. But we're spending $300 million to go get $7 million a year from potential Pac-12 membership. I found that dichotomy a little bit humorous. And the other thing is FBS independence doesn't really even exist anymore. Yeah. Like Notre Dame's independent, and obviously they're Notre Dame. The only other school left is now UConn. UMass is joining the MAC. Army and Navy have joined conferences. So UConn is really the last true independent in FBS, and we all know why they're independent. They're an FCS school that plays really good basketball, and so that's allowed them to remain in FBS for the most part. Mm-hmm. Sacramento State does not anywhere in the same galaxy as UConn in basketball. So to think that they could just kind of bluster their way into making this happen, it's been fun to see it watch. I just don't see how it's going to be successful.
Zach, you did a Twitter poll, which is obviously the best way to research things nowadays.
Of course.
About how closely fans follow recruiting. I think that if you had done this poll 5-6 years ago, it would have been flipped. I think there's a lot more people now that like they know who the guys are, but they're not as into it because why get attached because of the transfer portal?
Yeah, and that was a lot of the responses. The most common response from people that said that they don't follow it nearly as closely as they did NIL and pre-transfer portal. And I mean, it's hard to argue with that stance. I will say if the House settlement works as intended, which is big if, I think recruiting will start to matter more, and the ability to just buy a roster is going to get a lot more difficult because coming up, if I sign a 2-year NIL a rev share agreement with Florida State and I want to leave after a year and I would owe a $500,000, $50,000 of buyout money to Florida State, and I want to leave Florida State and go play for Ole Miss. Well, all of a sudden now Ole Miss would owe Florida State $50,000, whatever my buyout figure is. And so quickly now Ole Miss would have to decide how much am I really worth that? Is it really worth what you're going to have to pay me on top of paying my buyout? I don't know if that's going to hold up in court. Frankly, I hope that it does because I think we need, soccer style transfer fees, mainly from the Power 4 down to the Group of 5, Group of 6. I think USC needs to compensate San Jose State for developing their players after 2 years. Ohio State needs to compensate Cincinnati or Miami, Ohio for developing their players to let Miami of Ohio go find their next kid that they're going to develop. So that's a long story longer. If the House settlement works as intended, I think recruiting might matter more because I think being able to just hoard players in the portal is going to be more difficult.
Yeah, I like that idea. I know there was a coach that brought it up recently about, look, if that's just what we're going to be, I'm happy to be the guy who gets these guys more money and develops them. But, you got to pay me for it. Like you got to make sure that you're paying, the transfer fee is the best way to talk about it because how many guys, get into the Premier League because they're dominating, in the champ, in the other levels, So yeah, I think that is the best model because otherwise there's just going to be, it's just going to be so confusing and and all that. I do think that the House settlement will work at least partially as intended. I still think, though, Zach, and I'm curious your thoughts on this, that it's going to be really hard to get around, some collectives that have just decided we are spending this money and we will figure out a way around no matter what, because that's what they've always done, no matter what the rules were.
Right. And as annoying as certain parts of this era have been, I think we all need to remember that this era came about because the Supreme Court ruled that the NCAA's business model was illegal, and the money that had propped up this enterprise had been illegally stolen from players. And just now, these football and basketball players are getting the money that they've earned, that they produce to create this entire system that we all enjoy, that you and I have jobs from. So I'm hesitant to lay too many criticisms of this era, because I think we finally have some needed justice for these guys to go out and make this happen. Having said that, I think what we're doing now is just push it. We've pushed all them. There was no need to be secretive from 2021 to 2024, because you could just funnel that money through a collective. You didn't need a children's hospital like LSU did. Just put it in the collective, go give it to the player. Now we've proven that there's a market for these guys' services, and it's not going to be satisfied by just this salary cap that a court settlement that a lot of players and collectives and businesses were not party to. So you're now telling me I have to abide by this agreement that I was not party to, and if not bad things happen, well, I'll just funnel that money back under the table the way we did from 1869 to 2020. So I think that's what's going to happen, because I think anyone who thinks that legally the money's just going to go down is delusional. So frankly, I don't know, Deloitte and what army give them the power to say, no, you're not allowed to make this sort of money. In my belief, capitalism is you're worth what someone's willing to pay you. And I think these guys are still going to get paid, over the table or under the table. They're going to get their money.
Yeah, they are. They're going to find a way. And to that, you're a really interesting couple of pieces of football scoop about, you got into Texas A&M's recruiting, like massive recruiting staff, and Michigan's. Even when I read it, I was still surprised at how much those guys are getting overall. Like they're paying them a lot of money to not be on the field coaches. That kind of shows you where this is headed, isn't it?
Right. I mean, it's been fascinating to watch this all play out, because it's been a little bit different from school to school, whether the GM is the guy making all the important decisions, or he's a figurehead, or he's just your old player personnel coordinator with more money and a better title. At Texas A&M, they had a 10-man and woman recruiting staff, with the highest is $200,000. And I believe we're going to find that that's on the low end for your general manager or senior ranking personnel official. Michigan has Sean McGee. They have a 3-year contract where they'll pay him $360,000 to be their general manager this year, $370,000 next year. Just down the road at Ohio State, Mark Pantoni is making close to $1 million. I don't have the numbers in front of me. And Mark Pantoni is the best in the business. But you're finding a lot of these guys that are making low 7 to high 6 figures. So $360,000, I think, is a steal. $200,000 at Texas A&M is a bargain. And if I'm Derek Miller, I'm going to be asking a lot of questions, because the guy who is to his left, Brandon Harris at Texas, makes $600,000 to be the general manager at Texas. And Steve Sarkisian will tell you he's really the general manager. At LSU, Austin Thomas, he's making $700,000-$800,000, I believe. So for Texas A&M to be at 200, I believe we'll find that that's going to be below market rate. But there's other schools in the SEC I know that don't even pay anywhere close to $200,000. So all of this, we're in the personnel world, is kind of, we're kind of making it up as we go, figuring out how much this position is really worth at a dollars and cents figure. And it's just been fascinating to me to kind of peel the cover back on that regard, on that area of college football, because there's been so much written about how much ADs make, coaches, assistant coaches, and this is the new frontier of the sport.
Yeah, it really, well, I do see an era where the head coach is essentially the only one who really recruits. And that's only towards the end, right? Or like in little spots where you have the general manager and his recruiters, and then the position coaches and head coaches come in, as needed, as opposed to them being the ones on the road.
Yeah, I certainly see that.
It's still off a little bit in the future, but I do think that that's probably where it's headed.
Yeah, one big development there is the removal of the 10 on-field coaches. You can still only have 10 coaches go out on the road and recruit for you, but now you're basically unlimited on the amount of guys that can coach on the field. So if you have an older coordinator who doesn't not the best guy to go drive up and down I-20, the I-20 corridor in the Dallas area to pound the pavement to find players, but he's great, with mom and dad and kid, in the film room. That could be his recruiting contribution, and then you can have a younger guy who may not be one of your 10 on-field coaches go out and be off the field or go recruit off the field. But I think we're still a bit of ways away from the traveling salesman of full-time recruiters, of guys that don't even coach, because eventually mom and dad are still going to want to have personal relationships with their position coach, the guys that are going to be coaching them. So I think you're going to see it a little bit, on a case-by-case basis.
I think it'll be very gradual, but I think there'll be a thing where those guys are essentially closers, and the starters are the guys who go out there and they'll be there too. Like, hey, I'll be there with you. I'll be there with you at Michigan State. Yeah, just wait, and then, you go, and then, the next day the position coach calls. She's like, hey, Zach, really, really would love to have you here in East Lansing. Why don't you come up? We'll hang out. And then that's where it starts, as opposed to the grind of, it's a bye week. Now we have to go to 20 high schools. I think that might go away too. So, but it's going to be 15 years. Yeah.
Or you could be Deion Sanders and be a Big 12 head coach and not even leave your house.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you have to just spend the first, 30 years of your career becoming the most famous person you can. I mean, that's not that hard to do. It's not that hard to do. Zach Barnett, footballscoop.com. Great website. I go to it every single day. Zach, thank you so much. We'll talk to you again soon. Will we see you at Big 12 Media Days? I asked you this already.
I hope so. I have no firm plans to be there, but if I can be there, I will be. Okay.
Good deal. All right. Hope that we get to see you there at Big 12 Media Days. At Zach Barnett, footballscoop.com. Stewart Mandel of The Athletic is next. This is 365 Sports.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
Don Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. Don Humidor in the Townwood Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
Ready to take your business to the next level? Carrion Solutions has got you covered. We deliver world-class IT consulting, including Quest On Demand and Migration Manager, M365 and Exchange migrations, Active Directory assessments, security hardening, and Windows Server upgrades. Our experts specialize in consulting, monitoring, support, and managed IT services. We promise vision, professionalism, and unbeatable value. Satisfaction guaranteed. If you're not happy, we make it right. Remember the name Carrion Solutions. For more info, email sales@carrionsolutions.com or visit carrionsolutions.com. That's CARRION solutions.com. Carrion Solutions IT success guaranteed.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
This is 365 Sports. Text us at 254-339-1122. The text line is sponsored by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
Stewart Mandel of The Athletic joins us here on 365 Sports. And Stewart, Sacramento State is genuinely one of the most interesting stories to me coming out of all the craziness of the last 4 years of college football. Is a team that honestly I'd never heard of. And then I recently found out that their most famous alum is Tom Hanks. So then all of a sudden they've decided they're going to try to money whip their way into power college football, into the FBS. And it just feels out of nowhere. Was it out of nowhere, or was it just because they weren't very popular? None of us knew about them.
It is out of nowhere.
Yeah.
I live in the Bay Area, about a couple hours away. Sacramento State has never really entered the conversation. They did make the playoffs a few times recently. Before Troy Taylor got hired by Stanford, he led a little bit of a resurrection. They made the playoffs a couple times. But that was the first time. That was the first time they'd made the playoffs. And then they went back to 3-9 last year. Basketball, they have about as bad a history as you can get. Men's basketball has never been to the NCAA tournament. And then all of a sudden, about a year ago, there was this community effort, a bunch of people deciding, hey, we're going to go all in on this, and raising a lot of money. And most importantly, the president of the university has just decided that this is his number one priority, getting Sacramento State athletics into FBS, into the big time. This is a school that made $100,000 in media revenue last year, that now is talking about bringing in millions. I went there the other day, and it's about as modest as you would expect in terms of facilities and the offices and whatnot. And yet Jaden Rashada is there. Everybody remembers Jaden Rashada, top 100, a receiver from Mississippi who took officials to LSU and Ole Miss, was there visiting last weekend. They're like the hot program on social media amongst all the, recruits in the country. And so, one of the reasons I wanted to go is that when I initially started hearing about this stuff, it was easy to just kind of blow it off, but they're not giving up. And as you saw this week, they got their application, or they needed a waiver to move up to FBS because they don't have a conference invite. That waiver was denied. And then the president immediately went on Twitter and said, we're still going to do it. We're still going to get in some way or somehow. So it's got a little bit of a when Dion went to Jackson State kind of element to it.
It very much does. And then look, they're not holding back. I mean, they've hired the Nick Saban of NCAA suing lawyers and Jeffrey Kessler. I'm sure they're not going to give you the legal strategy, but is this going to be one of those things that they're saying the waiver process is kind of arbitrary and we've hit every benchmark other than these things about, being invited to a conference? If we want to be independent, we should be able to be independent. Notre Dame's independent, that there's at least some sort of precedent for them doing what they want. Liberty, I guess, would be.
I don't think they have a legal strategy yet. I think this is all kind of happening on the fly. Just kind of throw anything and everything out there in an attempt to do this. I mean, the biggest selling point they have, in my opinion, is that they're in Sacramento. Sacramento is a major city. It has an NBA team. It currently has a Major League Baseball team. It's the largest market in the country that doesn't have an FBS team. And so when you think of it that way, there are people who commented in our story saying, well, why doesn't the new Pac-12 want them? Why doesn't the Mountain West want them? This seems like kind of an obvious choice. But beyond that, when you think about some of the schools that have moved up, who have made that move in the last, let's say, 10 years, Appalachian State was a long time FCS powerhouse, right? Mm-hmm. A bunch of those schools that moved into the Sun Belt had that kind of history. Liberty, which is the last school that got this exception, is like sitting on a fortress of money basically there. And they'd had some success at the FCS level. So I think the reason they're not getting much traction is for the same thing we're talking about. The conferences I think would like a little more time to see if this is actually a thing. It's not a big game, but can they actually deliver a product?
I wonder what would happen if this stalled for a couple years and they had a change in leadership, but a conference like the Pac-12 or the Mountain West had extended them an invitation. Like, that would kind of maybe blow up in their face a little bit, wouldn't it?
Yeah. This is all the work of some relatively new leadership. The president got there only a few years ago. He's a Sacramento State alum, and that's a big part of this push by him. You just hired Brennan Marion. He's a very promising head coach. He had a great success as the OC at UNLV. I can tell you right now, if they're successful, he probably won't be there very long. How long is Mike Bibby going to want to be the coach of the basketball team? So it's like, they're trying to fast forward the process, right? They're trying to say, let's just pretend it's 5 years from now and we've already established that we can do this. Now, a year from now, does one of those conferences change their opinion about Sacramento State? Possibly. The issue is they've sold all these high-profile transfer portal kids on, we're going to FBS. Even Brennan Marion himself said he would not have taken the job if they weren't going to FBS. And right now it's uncertain whether that's actually going to happen.
The Pac-12, and I do want to ask you about Texas State here in a second, but the Pac-12 needed that 8th football member. They now have it in Texas State, but I would assume that their plan isn't to stay at just 8, like maybe it is to go to 10 or 12 eventually. Why would they not just go ahead and grab Sacramento State just so they kind of have that security and they would have a 9-team conference? Just playing devil's advocate there.
Well, because it's risky, right? I mean, you're talking about the schools that they brought in this, last year are very established FBS programs. Most notably Boise State, but Fresno State's had success. San Diego State's had success. Sacramento State's completely unproven. Like, not even like, oh, they're a good FCS program. We're not even talking about that yet. And so, if you think about, at the time, it wasn't necessarily obvious to a lot of people why those schools did leave the Mountain West. And one of the main reasons was they felt like they were being dragged down by some of the schools at the bottom of the Mountain West that just don't invest in football and haven't, been particularly competitive for a long time. And do you risk Sacramento State coming in and basically becoming that team in your conference? Yeah,
I would totally see the vantage point of the Pac-12 and the Mountain West, or somebody that's like somebody you said, no, I've got the money. Don't worry, I've got the money. It's fine. We've got the money. We promise you. And then you're like, okay, well, the Bills do today. And they're like, well, we'll have the money. Like,
it's unclear where the money's coming from. Like, that was my big question there the other day. I mean, Brennan Marion is believed to be the highest paid coach in FCS by a considerable margin. He's making more than double what the two most recent FCS national champion coaches are making. Their assistant salary pool, if you go on the USA Today database, would be like the highest in the MAC or in Conference USA, and one of the highest in Sun Belt. And they're saying they're going to spend $4 million on NIL in football this year. And what I kept asking people was like, well, where was this before? I mean, you're saying there's all these people who are dead set and crazy about trying to get, and it's like, well, where were they in the 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago? Because there was nothing. I believe we have a figure in our story that the total giving to the athletic department in its most recent report was like $800,000 total. And now you're talking about $4 million on NIL alone. So this could end up being a tremendous success story, but in the meantime, I get why a conference that's rebuilding itself like the Pac-12 would be very skeptical.
Yeah. And usually, this isn't like Cody Campbell, who's out there saying, no, this is me. I've got the money. You see, how oil works, right? They have, that's the thing I think that's most curious to me as well, is like most times when people are going to do this, the T Boone Pickens of the world or Cody Campbell's or, name a guy in the SEC that, just because he's a big dog. No one has come out and bragged about this yet. Like that's,
you don't even have, you've seen the headlines about the $50 million that's been raised. They don't actually have that in hand. Those are pledges that if they get to FBS, then these donors are going to give them $50 million over 10 years. Last year, Adam Schefter, when the Michael Vick stuff came out, just kind of threw it out there that they've got this $50 million NIL war chest. Well, no. They have $50 million in pledges, and they're only going to collect those pledges if they actually get into FBS. I think a lot of it is just coming straight out of the university. They're just, this is like I said earlier, this is the president's number one priority. If you look at in their most recent NCAA report, where their revenue is coming from, it's probably 2/3 either student fees, university subsidies, or I forget what the other term is, but it is basically another university subsidy. It's not coming from donors, and it's not coming from, some big, it's not coming from ticket sales. It's not coming from athletics, to be perfectly honest. It's coming from the university side. And by the way, the university is running at a deficit.
So the Pac-12 is bringing in Texas State, the new look Pac-12. What from someone who watched the rise and fall of the Pac-12 and then this new version of it, what do you think is the big benefit to them for Texas State over everybody else that they could have taken?
I think it was always seen as a good move or smart move to move into Texas, to get into the Central Time Zone. There's frankly just a limited pool of teams in the Pacific and Mountain West time zones. That being said, I don't know that Texas State moves the needle. But I don't know that a lot of the teams that they could have realistically gotten would have moved the needle. The move that they made last fall, the kind of big splashy out of nowhere, we're bringing all these Mountain West schools into the Pac-12, created an initial expectation that, okay, and then Memphis is going to follow, or Tulane's going to follow. Like, obviously they thought they were going to get UNLV, and none of that materialized. I think the TV figures that we're hearing are not what they were talking about last fall. So Texas State, has a lot going for it, but, that's a far, frankly, not even remotely close to if you'd gotten UNLV, who's got a lot going for it, much less some of those AAC schools.
Do you think that they will eventually be able to convince UNLV if they decide to go past 8? Would that be their first target, or would they go to somewhere like Memphis or Tulane?
Right now, there's not really a reason for anybody in the AAC to come because the money's not any better.
Yeah.
They have a deal with ESPN. Those schools are frankly better off staying where they are. Now with the Mountain West, their turn at the media table is going to come up here soon. And I think that number is you think the Pac-12 is disappointing. That number is going to be very depressing because there's just not much to hang your hat on, unfortunately. I mean, that you're talking about UTEP's in that conference now. It's the kind of the dregs, to be perfectly honest. Now UNLV is now the headliner, right, in the reconstituted Mountain West. And let's not forget, prior to 2 years ago, UNLV hadn't been good in football for a long time.
Yeah.
It is, I think, an exciting place that plays in the Raiders Stadium now and has a lot going for it. They have Dan Mullen now, right, as the head coach. But even UNLV football could go right back to being an afterthought. So maybe some schools reconsider that. I also just shortchanged Air Force. Air Force is still in there. Obviously, Air Force has a big national following.
Stewart, this summer has been I don't want to use the term plagued. It'll all get worked out eventually. But the Big Ten and SEC turn out that you can't just merge, Google and Yahoo and hope for the best, right? There's going to be fights, and they've kind of started this fight over the playoff, which now the other conferences have kind of taken advantage of. Now, while it may not be the smartest thing for the Big 12 and ACC to say, look, we don't want our 2 guaranteed, we'll roll the dice. But I do think it's something they probably have to do to even try to get on that level, because if they automatically admit they're not as good, then that's what will be said about them for all time. It's like, well, they admitted they weren't as good when they took less playoff spots. How do you think this ultimately ends up? Do we get to 16 in 2026, or do we stay at 12 a little bit longer until everybody decides what they want?
The thing is, they don't have that much time at this point to make, if they want to make a drastic change for 2026, they've really got to get it figured out soon. And as Ralph Russo said on the Audible, our podcast this week, on the one hand, like it's taken this long and they've made very little progress. On the other hand, at any point, right, couldn't Tony Petitti and Greg Sankey get on a call and just hammer this out?
Yeah.
But it's been, frankly, to be honest, amusing to watch this back and forth where, the Big Ten and SEC have wanted for so long to basically be able to run college sports. And they've finally been given that opportunity, specifically when it comes to the CFP. Like they literally got the other ones to sign on to a contract that says, you two get to dictate the future of it. And what have they done with that so far? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. They can't agree on a thing. They're in this like circular game where the Big Ten wants the SEC to move to 9, and then they would drop this AQ idea. But the SEC, sorry, I have that backwards. The Big Ten wants the SEC to go to 9. The SEC wants to know what the CFP format is before they'll agree to go to 9.
Yeah.
And around and around and around we go. So I think you said it right earlier, right? The idea that there could be a hunky-dory alliance between two direct competitors with so much at stake never seemed particularly realistic to me. Now, we're not out of the woods yet. For those of us like myself who want nothing to do with that 4-4-2-2 thing, I don't think it's dead by any means. But I think Greg Sankey played it right down the middle. He didn't shut down talk of that, but he also didn't embrace it. And then he comes out of a meeting at SEC at Destin in the SEC meetings and says, well, the coaches want 5+11, right? So we got to take that into account. And I think at that point, people realize, like, how do you go back from that? This is such an unpopular concept that are you going to turn around and say, no, you know what? We think we are going to join forces with the Big Ten and do that. So I don't have a good answer to your question about, is it going to go to 16? Is it going to happen by 2026? Everybody seems to just be kind of paralyzed right now.
I never thought that Greg Sankey wanted automatic qualifiers because he's very smart and he can do simple arithmetic. Anytime that you put a barrier on or a quota, okay, we got to fill these four, these two, this one. Well, then you're probably eliminating some people that might be deserving. And most of the time he thinks history has proven out that it would probably be SEC teams. So he knows if he goes to 4, that there's going to be years where he could have 7 that he won't. He'll get 4 because of that, or 5, and I think he wants to, since he's been telling everybody that their league's better than everybody anyway, I think he's kind of daring everybody like, all right, I'll do 5 and 11. That's great. When we get 8 to the 11, I'll really love it.
The 4-4-2-2 is entirely Tony Petitti's creation.
Yeah.
Tony Petitti is a TV executive who thinks solely in terms of TV dollars and inventory and all that. And he wanted to do this so that he can create those play-in games for the 4 automatic berths. It wasn't about what's best for college football or for the CFP itself. It's like, we could create 4 new games and sell them to Fox, right? And so now the thing the Big Ten and SEC both agree on is they hate the selection committee. They both think the committee doesn't do them justice, even though I would say the Big Ten has been treated very well by the committee. And what I just kept getting back to is, well, why don't you just change the committee then? Like, you guys have the authority to blow it up and start over, rewrite the protocols, add a new metric, do the net rankings of college football. Like, you guys have direct control over that. And that seems much not easier, but less drastic than turning the whole thing into a invitational, which I think would be a huge mistake. It would undermine the credibility of the CFP. It would obviously not only would it turn off people in the other conferences, I see all the time comments from Big Ten SEC fans who don't want it. So as I talk through this, I kind of think it's going to be, it's not going to be the 4-4-2-2. But I, never say never.
I was talking to someone in the Big 12 a couple weeks ago, and I just asked him, just in passing or off the record, but about it's weird that Tony Petitti invented this thing, yet he said nothing about it. You've not heard from him. He floated out the idea. It clearly didn't go over well with the public, and he has at no point come out to defend it and try to say it. because I don't, and like part of it is it's just not his thing. TV negotiations happen in the dark, so that's kind of how he operates. But it is weird that like you would come up with this thing and you really want it, and at no point have you come out and tried to explain to college football fans, well, here's why I think this, and this is why it's better, and you'll see that I'm right. At no point has that happened, which makes me believe that he, it was, let's see if we can get this scam through. And it if it passes, it passes. If not, all right, well, at least I tried, because we've not heard a word from him about why he thinks it's such a good idea.
It's just kind of how he operates. He's very different than people in that position before. The only time you really see him is, at Big Ten football media day. He'll give his little address. He goes on some like panels sometimes, but he's not that when you go cover these, a lot of us in this industry spend a lot of time staking these guys out at hotel lobbies, at meetings. He's not one of the ones that does that joins the scrum. A lot of the messaging around the 4422 has been done through kind of surrogates, like kind of frankly the way politics works, where you see quotes from, a senior administration official. So, and Greg Sankey doesn't love that, by the way, because his conference turns, by the way, the Big Ten had their own meetings in May. They were at a resort in, what's it called? Somewhere in Southern California, like on a cliff overlooking the ocean. And there was no media there because they don't make anybody available. Versus the SEC holds that thing in Destin, and like every coach, coach, AD, and of course the commissioner talk to the media at some point. So it's just like two very, very different ways of going around it.
I remember when I first found out that Gary Oldman was British. I'd seen him in like so many movies. I had no idea what his accent was. And then I saw him on Letterman one time and he was British. And I went, oh, well, that's the real one. Okay, got it. I didn't know. If you like, I can tell you Greg Sankey's voice. I can tell you Brett Yormark's really well. I can tell you Jim Phillips. I can tell you some of the other conference commissioners from like Teresa Gold and, all that. Like if I heard him, I'd be like, oh, that's who that is. If Tony Petiti was Canadian or British or French, like from Italy, like I would have no idea because he's spoken that little.
He's the man in the shadows. That's for sure.
That's right.
It's been interesting over the last 5 or so years. For whatever reason, the university presidents at these conferences have gotten very enamored with hiring people from outside the college sports bubble, right? I mean, the ultimate example of that was George Kliavkoff.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. And so now the Big Ten had Jim Delaney for 30 years, right? The consummate college sports guy. And now 2 hires in a row were outside the box guys, Kevin Warren and now Tony Petiti. And neither of them have been particularly effective, if you ask me, in terms of navigating the politics of college sports. One thing I kept being told is that the reason he's still clinging to the 4422, or one of the reasons, even though it's clearly very unpopular, is he already basically told his ADs and presidents it was going to happen. So now they're expecting it. So, people don't realize how much of being a college sports administrator is managing expectations among your constituents. And I think it's particularly unwieldy in the Big Ten now because they have 18 schools. How do you keep 18 schools happy?
Oh, how many conferences couldn't keep 8?
Yeah.
The Southwest Conference had 8. They broke up. Like it's hard. Yeah.
The Big 12 had 10 for many years, and the entire time it was like, is it going to live? Is it going to die? Is Texas going to leave? Which they ended up doing, obviously. So, and by the way, one of the talking points I hate is that they act like this 18-team thing just kind of like got hoisted on them. And so Ryan Day a few weeks ago was pushing for this automatic bid thing. And he's like, we have 18 teams now. It's really hard. We have these West Coast schools. Like, it's really hard to be in this conference. Like, you guys chose that. Nobody forced you to take those schools. You guys chose it. And now you want to bend the whole CFP around it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and here's the other thing. Some years it could be really hard. You look at a schedule and that's really tough. USC's got a pretty tough schedule this year, but there could be a year where that schedule's not that tough because you have 18 and they got to rotate it around. So I think that some of those arguments are kind of faulty as well. Like, oh, it's really hard. Well, this year it is. Next year it might not be, So It's a lot more cyclical than it used to be. Stewart, thank you so much for making time for us today. Love your work with The Athletic. We'll talk to you again as we get closer to the season.
All right. Thanks for having me.
All right. Stewart Mandel of The Athletic with us. This is 365 Sports. John McClain is up next.
Allen Samuels House of Travel is a full-service travel agency with highly experienced travel consultants plus support staff with over a combined 150 years in the travel business. They are ready to take care of any travel situation for you, your family, and your business, and with the kind of knowledge to complete a seamless itinerary trip start to finish. They will search for the best deal to accommodate your budget from air to cars, ship to shore, hotel, and even meeting space. Name a destination and they've been there. They know the places to go, and international and missionary travel is one of their unique specialties. Allen Samuels House of Travel, celebrating 50 years in business. Call Connie, Sherry, Linda, or Bambi at 254-776-2560 or find them on Facebook or at houseoftravelwaco.com. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at alliancebanktexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
Want to send a message to the show? Jump in the Rudy's Country Store and Barbecue chat room.
Welcome back, Paul Catalina, flying solo today. Joined by our good friend John McClain, Hall of Fame columnist. And John, you were just in Mobile, right, with Robert Brazil. What for?
Paul, it was something that I think every city in the country should have. Mobile, a city of 179,000, has a what's called, they unveiled this week their Hall of Fame walk. The convention center's on the water, and this walk, they commissioned 6 statues, 9 foot each, to their Hall of Famers. A city of that size has one Pro Football Hall of Famer, that's Robert Brazil, Dr. Dunn, 10 years with the Oilers, and they have 5 Baseball Hall of Famers. Think about this, 179,000, they produced Hank Aaron, Satchel Paige, Willie McCovey, Sweet Swinging Billy Williams, and Ozzie Smith. And they had a ceremony. I was invited over by Robert. Earl Campbell's there. A lot of ex-Oilers were there. It was a huge deal. And those statues were sculpted by a guy in Minnesota, shipped in on 18-wheelers, and cranes had to put them in their place. And they're lit up 24 hours right there for people to see them. And I think it was one of the coolest things I've ever seen. And I thought, boy, I don't know if we got that many Hall of Famers born here and bred here, but it was great. And thank you for asking. Of all the things, Paul, that I've been blessed to do since I left Waco in the Tribune-Herald in 1976 to come to the Houston Chronicle, I've been blessed to do a lot. And that was just about as neat an experience that I've had, because everybody there was so excited, including Dr. Dunn, because he's the only one who still lives there.
I was in Gulf Shores, Alabama last year, and I flew into Mobile to get there. My best friend from high school lives in Mobile, and I wish I would have had more time than to just kind of go in and go out because it was during football season. But I will definitely, I'll make time for it now that the next time we do that trip.
I promise you, Paul, if you go there, it doesn't take long.
Yeah.
There's hotels and restaurants all around it. They've done a great job, but they're just there to look at. It has a little bio on the side, and I'll send you some of the pictures we took because they were just fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. So, John, a lot. I don't know if a lot, but I mean, there's a buzz around about the story that Pablo Torre dug up, and I know that Mike Florio is big on it about the NFL and the NFLPA and the arbitration hearing they had in regards to collusion as it stood to Deshaun Watson's contract and why no other contracts after that have been fully guaranteed. It was a dumb idea by the Browns in the first place, but that being said, the arbiter basically ruled that there wasn't collusion because not every owner colluded. Only some of them did. What does this mean in the grand scope of things for the NFL, if anything? Or is this just kind of a look into the way that things work in these kind of gigantic professional leagues?
Mike Florio in Pro Football Talk, who's an attorney, he's written about this about 5 times a day, slow time of the year, and it matters to him. I don't know anybody else. I haven't had anybody ask me about it, whether it was on air, off the air. All people want to do is see football. Mm-hmm. And if they see football, they're happy. And it was a dumb contract for the Browns to give to Watson. It's indisputable. So why would other owners do that? Now, we see owners guaranteeing $225 million. And so I don't think the players are going to the poorhouse. They got caught colluding. And it's unfair if you have an email, one owner telling another, well, we shouldn't do this. I'm glad you didn't do that. Well, as you brought up, Paul, it's not fair to penalize everybody because 2 people are doing it. And if the union didn't complain about it, then it's not a big deal because otherwise the union would have raised all kinds of hell.
Yeah, I would think that this maybe just goes into their little bag for the next CBA. And they go, look, hey, we can't have this again. But clearly, if it was actual collusion, it would be a bigger deal. But I get that Mike Florio has been big on this again because he's an attorney, and Pablo Torre dug this up that nobody wanted, neither side really wanted anybody to see. Do you think they didn't want anybody to see it because it will look worse than it is? Or, why not just announce that?
I have no idea.
Yeah.
Don't have any idea. I'm surprised it didn't leak. If people thought it was a very big deal, it would have leaked because everything leaks. Mm-hmm. And did it cost players money? I don't think so. There was some interesting stuff in there about Lamar Jackson handling his own negotiation and his tape recorder or something screwing up in it. But I think he got $275 million and he's about to get a new deal. So I don't hear any of those guys complaining about it.
No, absolutely not. So, John, as we, this is the time where everybody sits around nervous and hopes that nobody, gets in trouble. What do you look for as the next thing other than training? Is there anything other than training camp that people need to be on the watch out for in the NFL?
Well, everybody in the NFL know people in Houston are fired up because the Astros just swept the Phillies, gave them 1 run, 1 extra base hit in 3 games. Now the first place Cubs come to town with Kyle Zucker and Ryan Presley, and they'll get to see third baseman Isaac Paredes and right fielder Cam Smith, who were involved in that trade. And, of course, people are going crazy down here over the Kevin Durant trade. And the only thing that's come up about the Texans was at that Fanatics Fan Fest last week. I think that's where Peyton Manning was. Mm-hmm. And he was defending C.J. Stroud for people acting like he had a bad season or a sophomore slump. And he pointed out the guy has won the division 2 years in a row. He's won playoffs 2 years. I didn't win a playoff game till my 6th year. So back off. And so that got a lot of attention because it was Peyton Manning. And right now, coaches, besides worrying about guys getting arrested, the 49ers just found out one of their starting corners got arrested, is you don't want players not working out, taking a 6-week period, go home to grandma, let her cook huge, terrible meals, and come back gaining 25 pounds in 6 weeks, and you're out of shape and you can't complete the physical test. Nothing, Paul, makes NFL coaches angrier than players who come back out of shape. And if you do, you're in some serious trouble.
John, I want to talk about the Astros because I think more people were confident in their lineup going in, which has been more of a disappointment overall than they were of the pitching rotation. But Hunter Brown looks like he's going to be an ace. It might already be. Framber Valdez is very good, and they've gotten a lot more out of the bullpen than most any team in the American League, especially since Josh Hader's been so good. All that being said, do you expect to see them maybe make a move to boost the offense at all when it comes to the trade deadline?
If you think about this, Paul, the last 2 years have had two of their best pitchers, Luis Garcia, Christian Javier, Tommy John surgery. This year, they have 4 starters who are on the injured list, 2, Ronel Blanco and Hayden Wesneski, who have Tommy John surgery. Spencer Arrighetti, who pitched and was supposed to be the 4th starter, he got hit early in the season and broke his thumb on his pitching hand. He hadn't even started tossing the ball. And it's just amazing. Lance McCullers didn't have elbow problems. He had a foot problem. So he's on the injured list. And you remember, I'm showing my age now. People listening should Google it. When the Milwaukee Braves had Hank Aaron and Eddie Matthews and Joe Adcock, and they were one of the best teams in the National League. They had 2 pitchers, Warren Spahn and Johnny Sain, and the saying was, Spahn and Sain and pray for rain, because they didn't have anybody else. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what we've come up out here, Fromber and Brown, and because that's all they got. But they got a bunch of guys coming up from Sugar Land who've been pitching pretty darn well. And their bullpen, Hader and Brian Abreu, their setup man and closer, like Hunter Brown, have ERAs in the 1.7s. And their pitching, especially their bullpen, has been fantastic. They haven't had Yordan Alvarez since May the 2nd. They're 32-18 without him. They have the best record in baseball in June, and they had the second lowest ERA of the staff. They have the lowest for their bullpen. So they get a lot of timely hits last night. Think about that. Philadelphia Phillies, first place, just earned that first place with a victory over the Mets. And they come in here and they have 1 run in 3 games, 1 extra base hit. And then Cam Smith last night, their rookie right fielder, who was supposed to be in Sugar Land, has been a huge surprise, drove in the winning run. Now the Cubs are in first place, and if they I don't expect them to sweep the Cubs, of course, but man, it's been so impressive. And right now, A.J. Hinch of the Tigers would be American League Manager of the Year, but nobody, including Hinch, has done what Joe Espada has done, overcoming injuries to position players as well as pitchers. And Christian Walker, their new first baseman, the last 3 years with Arizona, averaged 31 homers, 94 RBIs. He's on a pace now for 20 homers and 60 RBIs, and has been a huge disappointment.
John, you mentioned KD. KD, Fred VanVleet, all the young guys that they have, and the Rockets were really good last year and looked like a team that was on the cusp of figuring it out. Do you feel that that passion boiling up to the level that it was, maybe not since Yao Ming was there?
Absolutely it is, Paul, because first thing, there have been rumors about that trade. There was rumors they were going after Giannis, the Greek freak, but they'd have to mortgage the future because he's 30 years old. Durant, they pulled the trigger on it. Jalen Green, their leading scorer, who was a disaster in the playoffs. They traded him. He's 23. He can be a great player, but he's not a shooter. You know, his are like 10 to 15 feet around the basket, spectacular dunks, great explosion. He kind of reminds me of VJ Edgecombe. And, VJ Edgecombe reminds me of Jalen Green. And Dylan Brooks, who was there one year, was the enforcer for those young guys. And he did a good job. And then they gave up the 10th overall pick from Phoenix back to Phoenix, and they used it on the Duke center. And people go, well, Durant's going to be 37. Yes, but Paul, over the last 7 years, he's only played more than 62 games once because he's had a lot of injuries. So if he could play 60 to 70 games here, and all they need him to do is shoot. He averaged 26.9 points. He shot great from 2, from 3. They don't need him trying to get rebounds. They've got all that taken care of. It's just a perfect fit, and he has to stay healthy. And right now, they are 9 deep, despite trading Brooks and Green. And so they didn't need a first-round draft choice. They got so many players right now, they don't know what to do with. And Ime Udoka, I don't know he had affair with in Boston that got him fired, but I sure am glad he did, because he has been tremendous. And their GM, Raphael Stone, who doesn't get much attention, he and Udoka do a great job. And the ambassador, as we call Tillman Fertitta, since he's the ambassador, Italian ambassador, you could hear him cheering all the way from Rome.
Yeah. By the way, one of the best ambassador gigs you can get is Italy.
Oh, my goodness. Getting to live in that compound in the middle of town. You know, he'll have a thing for the University of Houston Cougars and the Rockets. And he'll probably, while he's hosting dignitaries, he'll disappear and come back in 2 hours while he's watching his basketball teams.
Yeah, for sure. John, I think the thing about Ime Udoka wasn't like people talked about him, how he had that affair and got fired, but he was dating or married to Nia Long. And everyone's like, whoa, dude.
No. He was married to her.
Yeah.
He no longer is married to her.
No, absolutely not. John, I'm going to see F1 tonight. I'm very excited about it. What's the best movie you've seen so far this summer?
Well, the one I was most disappointed in was Ballerina.
Okay.
And I can't wait to see F1. I'm a big Ana de Armas fan, but I didn't like the writing. And I'm fired up because, you know, ever since I left Waco and come down here, people come up to me on the street and they'll say, "Are you Brad Pitt?" And I have to disappoint them, tell them I'm not, especially when I take off my shirt. So I'm really fired up about F1. Although I do think it's a little preposterous. A guy his age is flying around the track like that. But text me and let me know what you thought, because I won't be able to go till next week.
Will do. John McClain, Hall of Fame columnist, with us every week. John, talk to you soon.
Paul, thank you very much. Have a great weekend.
All right. That's John McClain, Hall of Fame NFL columnist. In our next segment, which will be the rest of the show, really, until the top 5, is Chuck Todd. What?
The poll thing?
Oh, yeah. I was getting to that. You didn't have to remind me.
Okay.
I was getting to that.
I see.
Yeah. You have to remind me. Our polls today from Andrew Vlade, the pollster, King Jiu-Jitsu. Which current NFL QB would survive the longest on a desert island? So hold on, let me pull that one up and see how it's going so far. I voted for Josh Allen.
That's who I would have voted for.
No, I actually voted for Jalen Hurts. I'm sorry.
He would have been my second. I would have.
Yeah.
Josh Allen was going to be number 1 for me.
Oh, yeah. No, I think that Jalen Hurts, to me, like, he's the strongest one.
Oh, without a doubt.
Yeah. So it would have been Jalen Hurts and Josh Allen. Patrick Mahomes without ketchup for that long, done.
Yeah, him and Burrow are too much like pretty boys for me.
Yeah.
To survive.
Have you seen like what Joe Burrow wears?
Yeah, I don't.
That's not a guy who can make it in the wilderness.
No, he's gonna cut his finger off trying to whittle or something. Like, it's
yeah. No. That, like, Jalen Hurts.
Jalen can survive.
Yeah, Jalen could absolutely survive. He'd be totally fine. He'd be totally fine. And the NIL poll. What your school actually offering the recruits? Straight cash, a Charger and Chick-fil-A, boats, just boats, and a handshake and a dream. Most people so far have voted for straight cash.
It's straight cash.
It's straight cash.
That's all I want.
Yeah.
Like I want it, and I want it in a duffel bag. Like I want it, like treat me like I'm in the 80s. Like make me feel like I'm smuggling something on an airport.
Make it feel illicit, even though it's not.
Yes.
Right?
I need the thrill of illegal activity. I
Yeah,
guess.
even though it's not like if it can, it's just a little, just a little cosplay. That's all you're doing.
All it is.
Just hey, I'm going to drive up. You just put it in the back seat, and
Meet me
we
in a
drive
park.
off.
Like I want to meet in a park on a bench and just switch this out real quick.
Oh yeah, you have an attaché case. I have an attaché case.
Yep.
They're the same. Mine has the NIL contract in it. Yours has the cash.
Yep.
Yeah. No. Yeah. I like that.
Broad daylight, middle of a park.
Yeah.
Yes.
Here's the thing. There's so many people who don't understand how it works now and complain. You and me and Steven Simcox have a text thread, which is mostly message board genius stuff. And the ones that we cracked up about, like I sent you one that was
the Miami.
Yeah. It's like, how is A&M getting all these people when they've never won anything? Like, look, none of those kids were alive to know that they haven't.
No.
Right? None of those kids were alive to know that you have. That's why they don't care that you have.
Exactly.
They don't care. They don't know because you haven't.
Their whole lives.
2001 was the last, or 2002 was the last great team. And since then, you've just been there.
Yep.
So their whole lives, they don't know. So if it comes down to just money and something that happened before they were born, so to them, even though A&M's was in 1939 and yours is in 2001, to 18-year-old kids, that doesn't matter at all.
No, it ain't.
Essentially, look, how many kids that are 18 years old really know the difference between 2001 and 1939 in 2025 America? I think they think it was the same time.
They probably do, honestly.
I think they think it was the same time.
It's pretty much.
They don't know that there was 60 years apart, but they don't care because right now it's just about money. So the reason that they're getting these recruits and snatching them away from Miami, especially the kids from Florida, is they're paying them.
Well, as they could say we're also in the SEC. They could play that whole card, and your conference might crumble in 10 years. There's so many factors to that.
Yeah,
but it's laughable when you see people, especially when it's like a program from like Miami who literally has a whole tradition built on paying players.
Mm-hmm.
Why are you complaining or whining because somebody else is doing it? Just shut the hell up.
Look, here's the thing. They the money's all gonna there's gonna be about 50 schools, I think, total
probably
that are paying because of the House settlement. I think it'll be about 50 because there are gonna be people who really push their chips to the center of the table. So let's say there's 50, and then of those 50, there's gonna be 10 that know how to really work the system, right? But the money, because of the House settlement, will probably be about the same everywhere. That's the goal, is for the money to be about the same everywhere. But when it comes down to it right now, especially with some of these front-loaded NIL deals that they can get in before July 1st, it's going to be about the money. That's it. That's all it is. It's very simple. Why did my school not get this guy? It has nothing really probably to do with the coach or the position coach or any of that crap anymore.
Mm-mm.
It's just about the bag. Now, we'll see post-house how that changes, which I hope it does, because I think you should be making decisions on more than money.
You should be.
Here's this is life advice for any young people out there. The older people in the crowd that are watching, they know this. Doing something just for money usually winds up bad.
Yep.
Like sometimes it'll work out. Like, I did this for money and it wound up being good. But
most of the time you're going to be miserable. It's going to bite you in the ass.
Yeah. Look, I'll tell you this. I'll just give the example of movies. Anytime you see a really big actor in a really crap movie, all you can say is I bet you got a lot of money.
Yep.
Yeah. A lot of money, because when you see somebody who's won Oscars or does these heavy things, and they're doing a
rom-com, bad rom-com or something.
I'll just tell you, Bill Murray said it about Garfield. He did Garfield because they paid him.
Yeah.
He's all I had to do is come in and read, and then they made a Garfield movie with my voice. What do I care? It wasn't good.
Especially if your face isn't with it.
Yeah. So the guy who plays Paul Bettany, the guy who plays the Vision in Marvel, was originally Jarvis. And they called him up and said, hey, would you like to do this voice of Jarvis? And he's like, I don't know, it seems kind of dumb. And they're like, here's a big bag of cash for 3 days work.
Seems awesome.
And then when they wanted him to like play the Vision, who, you know, comes out of that, he was like, I don't know, like, I mean, I have to come in and like put makeup on and all that stuff as opposed to just like rolling up and going,
doing some voice,
you know, yes, Mr. Stark, you know, like all he had to do. So anyway, when we come back, Chuck Todd, former host of Meet the Press, on his thoughts on everything college athletics and more. This is 365 Sports.
Automatic Chef is your local vending, office coffee, and micro market provider, delivering outstanding service to break rooms all over Central Texas for over 50 years. Automatic Chef brings the best products to your location at the best prices. With hundreds of choices in fresh food, coffee, snacks, and drinks, let Automatic Chef tailor a break room solution to your needs. Make break time great again with Automatic Chef. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchef.com.
Baylor alumni are more than 160,000 strong. When we all join hands to support our university, we don't just move the needle, we move mountains. Working together, we create life-changing opportunities for students on the field, in the classroom, in the laboratory, and in life for generations to come. So get connected, get involved. Learn how at baylor.edu/alumni.
There are 26 letters in the alphabet, over 600,000 words in the dictionary, and just 3 of them said together can change everything. Let's order pizza. Those 3 words lead to dough made from scratch and 3 fresh signature cheeses that blanket golden crust in a heavenly melt on Marco's Pizza that'll blow your mind. So visit marcos.com to order and stop by Marco's Pizza in Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Penny Clinic Men's Healthcare in Woodway is now proud to offer you men an exceptional weight management body sculpting product called semaglutide, also known as Ozempic or Wegovy. Semaglutide is an FDA-approved weight management medication. Once-a-week injections of this powerful medication offers an average body fat weight loss of 20% within the first year of treatment. In addition to body sculpting, semaglutide also normalizes blood sugars and has the clinical research proof of reducing blood pressure, cholesterol, stroke, and heart attack risk. If you're like most men and you have stubborn fat that will just not respond to typical diets and exercise, then help is finally here. Semaglutide, affordable, highly effective. Google search Penny Clinic Waco and reach out to the Penny Clinic team today for a free consultation with Dr. Penny to see if semaglutide is right for you. Go to pennycliniclowt.com.
This is 365 Sports. Enjoying the show? Hit the like button and subscribe.
Chuck Todd, former host of Meet the Press, now host of the Chuck Toddcast. If you are wondering, hey, why is the host of Meet the Press on a college football / sports podcast? Is because he is a tremendous sports fan. And even though Chuck will get it out of the way early, we are rivals because you are a gigantic Miami Hurricane fan. I am an FSU alum. Your wife,
I'm married to a Seminole. So
you have to. Yeah, you have to.
Look, Florida State, Miami, that's sibling rivalry.
Yes.
The real hatred is in Gainesville, and you know that. They're the enemy. Gainesville's the enemy. Tallahassee, that's an allied town. I still think it's a town of allies.
You know, the way I've always felt about this rivalry is we want to beat each other so bad, and the fights, like it's intense because sibling rivalry is the right way, because the hardest you're going to fight is when you're fighting your brother, right? You're just going to go, and there's a mutual respect there on, okay. Like, especially like when I was watching the U, when they started saying like, oh no, we liked those guys. Like, those are the guys we respected. We wanted to play them, but the Gators were afraid of them and they had no respect for them. I'm like, that's how I feel. That's exactly how I feel. We're the same. We just wear different shirts.
100%. 100%. No, the real evildoers are, and it's Steve Spurrier. He's the king of the evildoers. So that's all right.
Yeah. I do miss him in the rivalry, though. He made it a lot more fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My friend Tony Kornheiser loves to play this clip when he was the Washington football coach, when he was trying to justify 5-11. 5-11. Not too good. Not too bad. Not the worst. It was such a great Spurrierism.
Yeah, and that's when I was in school. He was the coach when I was in school, so it made it so much better and fun. I wonder this, because Miami has inflicted so much like pain on Florida State for the way Florida State loses to Miami. Usually when Miami loses to Florida State's just better. Like it's just
blowout. Yeah,
it's a blowout.
It's ever a blowout, it's usually Florida State blowing out Miami.
Yeah.
My favorite Miami FSU blowout was the one against Deion Sanders' music video team. That one is among the sweeter ones. But you're right. It is, when Miami wins, they seem to break FSU's heart. When FSU wins, Miami's just usually down.
Yeah. Which is a psychological mind screw like no other thing, because you're like, how can it be the sides of the coin? What is, though, because every one of my painful FSU experiences is a missed field goal. Like, a couple of Florida games here and there, but mostly missed field goals against Miami. But for Miami fans, what is your like painful? It doesn't have to be FSU, but like, what's your painful one that lives
easy.
in your? Yeah,
that's easy. It's Ohio State national title game.
Yeah,
I mean, it is. I was at the game. Mm-hmm. I remember sitting next to this Ohio State fan where we were shaking hands. He goes, we gave you a hell of a game. I thought you guys were going to blow us out. I'm like, I'm just relieved to survive. This wasn't, I don't know if we deserved to win. I mean, it was literally, the fireworks went off. The players were storming the field. And every Miami fan that knows that game also knows this. The referee who threw that flag, his name is Terry Porter. I will never forget your name, Terry Porter. I don't know if he's dead or alive, but I will never forget that name. It was, Miami played horrendously. Look, the entire state of Arizona is like this horrendous killing fields for Miami dreams. Mm-hmm. I believe Miami is 0 for the state of Arizona. They've never won a Fiesta Bowl. They lost a painful game against Penn State when I was in high school. The painful game that I just told you about with Ohio State. They one time lost a regular season game to the University of Arizona. They've lost other fiestas, this weird game against UCLA there. We cannot win. You'd think a hot weather team is something about the dry air. I don't know what it is. But we cannot win in the state of Arizona. I do not ever want to see Miami in a Fiesta Bowl. I would panic.
Do you, I know a lot of people only half believe me when I say this, but it is true. After suffering through the last 20 years or so of only one of the big three teams is good at once, I kind of now realize that when I was young, it was better because all three teams were good at the same time. I miss it when we only lost to each other. I don't like losing to Boston College. I don't mind losing to Miami and Florida, even though I hate it.
Yeah, no, look, we don't play Florida every year.
You should, but
Steve Spurrier canceled it.
Yeah.
Because he said we have to play an extra. We already, the state legislature mandates that Florida and Florida State play. Miami's a private school, so they can't mandate that they play. Look, you're right. Although, if you actually look carefully, all three were never top 10 at the same time. There was it's always two of the three.
Yeah.
Right. For that period of, I'd say 85 to probably 205. Right.
Yeah.
Where there would be pockets, Miami had a down 5 years. Florida had a down 5. It was really Florida State that never really had the down year. I mean, you guys don't get this credit. It's kind of like what happened. You guys with college baseball. I think of Florida State as one of the blue bloods. And then you realize, how come you've never won a title? You're always there. And it's like, it's similar with college football and even in the state where Florida State's been the most consistent power of the big three, even if the other two have gotten more titles.
Yeah, it's It's a weird fandom. I'm also a Red Sox fan, so like I kind of get it. Although, like, you know, now they're
Not
trying
anymore.
they're trying to reboot the curse. That's what they're doing in the aggregate. Like it's Mookie and then Dever. Yeah, it's
reboot. I have to say, I mean, it's hard to explain the Boston paranoia anymore after the run that Boston sports teams went on for the last 25 years.
Now I would say that it's not paranoia. It's like addicts that can't get their fix because, like, you know.
Please. The entire internet's built off of people feeling like victims. And so we love it. And in sports, it's a lot more fun to feel like you've been victimized. Oh, they didn't want Miami in the big blood schools. They were you know what I mean? We all want to feel like we're aggrieved.
Yeah.
Right.
No.
And in some ways it my God, that's what built the internet.
What and the reason I read a tweet from you about like the way college football is becoming corporatized and all of that, and that it's the SEC and Big Ten have kind of acted unilaterally without giving many concessions, and there's a lot of propaganda that goes around college football. How have you felt about the change, especially I see so many parallels to the way politics works now and the way that college football works, in that the facts of the matter, or the immediate like fact of the matter, because things can change over time. Right. You know, something that was true in 1987 is not true now, but both kind of worlds be like, well, in 1987, this was the case. So let's just make sure that that's involved.
Well, I would say one, I mean, you know, there's an SEC mindset, right? Feinbaum and Greg Sankey sort of represent it, where they don't accept the premise that they don't play the best. Nobody else could be playing anywhere near as competitive with college football as they are. No one else. The SEC somehow believes they're the only ones that have to play road games. Oh my God. You know, give me a break. Any road game is hard. And in fact, in some of these conferences now, traveling 3,000 miles for a road game, going to a different elevation and a different time zone, that's a lot harder than going to Starkville, Mississippi. Give me, you know, you leave your cowbell paranoia alone. So there is sort of that arrogance, and that happens in politics, right? Where everybody thinks what's happening around them is more important than the rest of the country. But in all seriousness, my real frustration with the Big Ten and the SEC is they don't seem interested in expanding college football. They seem interested in contracting it. If I were running college football as a business, and I said to myself, I want to be bigger than the NFL? Guess what? You're in more markets than the NFL could ever dream of. College football can get 80,000 fans to show up to a football game in Spokane, Washington. The NFL would probably need to bring Pat Mahomes to do that. Okay. And they certainly wouldn't have, they wouldn't necessarily have the interest to hold for years and years to come. If college football negotiated its television rights collectively rather than by conference, where they're essentially pitting each other against each other, I promise you that every SEC game, that there would be more money for everybody. There'd be more money for Colorado State, and there'd be more money for Alabama. It would raise all boats. I mean, if the NFL negotiated TV deals the way college football does, there'd be no Jacksonville Jaguars. There'd be no Green Bay Packers. You know, you just have the Dallas Cowboys and occasionally, you know, another team with a star player that would be able to get huge media deals. It would look a lot like baseball, right? Why is baseball failing as a sport? It does. I mean, look, I say this, I always say, I call myself, I'm a free market capitalist, but it doesn't work for sports, right? You got to have some form of socialism if you want the sport itself to succeed. The NFL is the greatest socialist enterprise, most successful socialistic enterprise that exists, right? Baseball's not, actually doesn't practice socialism, and it's actually destroying the game, right? Because you have, you know, the Dodgers Spanish language media rights is worth more than the entire media rights of the Minnesota Twins. So, you know, my frustration with college football is it all goes back, you know, not to sit here and turn this into a history lesson, but it all goes back to the original lawsuit. And I think it was 84, 85, Oklahoma and Georgia were the two schools that did it to try to essentially take away the NCAA's rights to negotiate TV deals for college football. And now, ironically, when they won their fight in the Supreme Court, there was actually one member of the Supreme Court who had played college football, Whizzer White. He was in the minority. And when he wrote his dissent, he predicted that this was going to be the beginning of the end of amateur college football, and it was going to create a professionalization. Money was going to, look, he's long been buried now, but he was essentially very prescient. It's an opinion worth reading if you really care about these things. Now, what's ironic is that the original organization that the schools put together was actually the one that should have stuck. They had something called the College Football Association. This was a precursor to the BCS, a precursor to what we have now. And it was not allowing the conferences to control their media rights, but it was done collectively. Now, we also had a lot more schools that were independent in the 80s. Florida State was an independent. Miami was an independent. There were a ton of major. Penn State was an independent. You had really major programs that were there. So there was an acceptance that, this should be done collectively. Then, of course, I guess, I always say, I don't know who fired the first shot. Arkansas leaving the Southwest Conference to go to the SEC, or Penn State deciding to go to the Big Ten. Maybe everything would be in a more equitable place had Penn State made the decision to stick with Miami and Syracuse and Pitt, and maybe form do the Big East, or, today Penn State being in the ACC would probably have Maryland in the ACC, and maybe you would have 3 or 4 more equitable conferences, and it wouldn't feel like 1 or 2 conferences were calling all the shots. But I do worry that this is just shrinking college football. And it's not lost on me that Greg Sankey is obsessed with the English Premier League, which is essentially, a business that did its best to shrink the pool of professional soccer teams playing at an elite level. Now, if we could have, I would love the idea of sending teams up and down divisions. If we had that, that might be a lot of fun, and I could embrace a system like that. But the system we have now is not equitable. If Spokane, Washington, and Washington State can't participate in this system fairly, then I don't think the system is fair.
Yeah, and it's strange that, like, everything is sold to you as bigger is better. Like, hey, you like a large fry? No, supersize it. There's more fries, right? So if you have a situation like the SEC where it's like, hey, not only we brought back Texas and Texas A&M, we brought back this rivalry. It's together. It's big time. It was actually for the conference title year one that it got, or a conference title shot the year it got back. So we're doing all these big time games. They do kind of ignore the fact that, like, Vanderbilt and Mississippi State are also going to pull a 2 at best. And that's if they're both 5-5. So that's, like, they ignore those things. The Big Ten, we got 18 teams. Yeah, but even the biggest Oregon fan doesn't care about playing Rutgers. They don't care. When the Colorado was in the Pac-12, they tried to make Colorado and Oregon the legal weed states rivalry, and it never took, right? So I feel like one day we're going to look back, or it's going to go back and somebody's going to have this great idea, but like, hey, why don't we make this regional? And
well, I actually, this is sort of I feel like we may stumble back into what it should be. I assume, and I'm curious what you think of this, I assume Miami and Florida State are going to be in the Big Ten in the next 10 years. That's my assumption.
I think so. I think that's where they want to be. I think that, obviously the SEC called, they might, change
Miami
their
would
minds.
never join the SEC. I don't believe they'd ever want them. And I don't think Miami's got a little bit of a snob about its academics.
Yeah.
And the SEC, there would be a big look. Miami went out of its way. They're now an AAU school, which used to be, that's the only way you could get into the Big Ten. And in fact, I think Florida State's probably got to go get some AAU status to make this work. But
they're trying, I know they're trying.
Right. So imagine this scenario: Miami, Florida State, North Carolina, let's say Virginia. Okay. Those 4 become the Southeast Division, right, of the Big Ten. And you see where I'm going here. I have a feeling that if we go to 2 super conferences, we'll end up getting regional divisions. Because how else are you going to do this?
Yeah.
It really doesn't make any, and the Big Ten being coast to coast, really the only place they're missing is Florida. You could argue they're also missing Texas, but I don't know where they'd go in Texas. But Florida, there's 2 obvious schools to go there. And maybe that's what does it. I'm obsessed with these private equity guys that have been shopping around the idea of basically pulling elite football away from the colleges and sort of let conferences be sort of geographical for all sports except football, and then just create a premier division system. And maybe that's the better call, because, if you did that, do we think Mississippi State would be in that elite level, right? Do we think Vanderbilt would even want to spend the money it would take to do it? They may not, right? They may rather spend their money on baseball and basketball, and then maybe they don't want to have the playing the top level of college football. Maybe they don't want to spend that kind of money. So I wonder if maybe we can get to something like that. But ultimately, we know who's calling the shots. It's actually not the conference commissioners. Right now, it's ESPN and Fox. But at some point, it's going to be Amazon and Apple and YouTube, right? Yeah. And Google are going to be calling these shots when they end up with the lion's share of the rights of these schools. They don't have them yet, but at some point they will. And that's when I'm guessing it will get rearranged. The deck chairs get rearranged again.
The NCAA, the college leaders, like everybody, every athletic director we talk to, every college president we've talked to, all talk about they need, congressional oversight and intervention in what's going on right now. Now, this is really the worst time in American history, in my opinion, to get something through Congress, considering that just stuff like the budget takes twice as long as it used to on a good day. And every time they think they're like, oh, hey, we've got some motion on this, something happens. We bomb Iran, or, there's LA or whatever happens, and that takes that out of the discussion for another month. Government will eventually come for it. But when, Chuck, and how did they do it, especially given that neither side is going to agree really who should benefit the most here?
Well, I do believe it's inevitable that Congress gets involved, but I think it's members of Congress, right? Because it's a bit parochial.
Yeah.
Where think about the way Mark Warner, as governor of Virginia, inserted himself into the Virginia Tech when Miami originally tried to leave the Big East. The single school they were trying to escape from was Virginia Tech, because the most expensive travel costs for the University of Miami athletics was going to Plattsburgh, not on the football team because you charter a plane, but everything else. You don't get to charter planes for all other sports. So Blacksburg was they wanted Syracuse and BC, right? Boston and some footprint in New York. And of course, the Virginia legislature got involved. Mark Warner was like, hey, I'm not going to leave out Southwest Virginia. And it was a good political move by his part. He inserted himself. So I do think politicians, it's good politics to, quote, save your school, right? Whatever saving your school means. So I do think you're going to see that involvement. The question is whether, the reason they may need congressional involvement, do they need an antitrust exemption, right? They might need that. They need a waiver. Are these athletes going to be considered employees in the same way the director of admissions is an employee, right? And if they're not, if they want to get a special status, well, I think they're going to have to get an act of Congress in order to create this special status. Maybe it is just simply an antitrust exemption. So I think there's some, I've talked to a few of these conference folks who say that while they don't want politics to insert itself, they know that they're probably going to need some regulatory help here. Look, the question is whether college sports does things that sort of forces the alphabet agencies to get involved, right? Whether it's collective bargaining, I assume that's coming, right? Where does the $1 billion TV deal, how does that get split up?
Yeah,
in all the professional leagues, the players get half that money. They split half the money. It's 50-50 in the NBA. In fact, it may be 55-45 to the players' benefit, I think, in the NBA. It's somewhere around 50-50 in football and in basketball, baseball as well, all on the pro side. Right now, nobody has said what the splits are, right? NIL money, in theory, is separate from the money that comes in on the media rights.
It's $20 million in the rev share right now, right? That they get from the, like, that's the cap for everybody. You can spend $20.5 million, but what percentage of that do they actually take out of the TV deal, and what percent of it do they just take from other places?
Right. Well, I also read that already you have universities are adding new fees to students.
In Florida, they have 4 years at least, and this is something I think would automatically get picked up at the end of 2028, is in 4 years, like for 4 years, they can take $22.5 million out of the school fund and put it to athletics. So that's not coming from the media rights. That's coming from guys like me who went to football games and drank beer.
Not only that, no, what I'm saying is they've added a fee to your tuition bill.
Oh,
basically an athletics fee of like $300 a semester. What do you think that's for?
Yeah,
that's not for building a new gym for the students.
No, that's not getting that done. No, I absolutely.
But I'll be honest, I don't think Congress knows how to involve itself yet, because in fairness, the sport doesn't know what it wants either.
Yeah.
Right. And as long as you continue, I mean, this is why we don't really govern very well as a country, why Congress is so feckless, because in many ways, Congress does on budget issues the same thing they're doing now in college football. They're waiting for all these court decisions to sort of force frameworks. Right. And unfortunately, when you let the courts sort of force action, then you end up making law you regret in the long term in order to satisfy the court ruling. And that's why this is, you wish there would be some proactive leadership here. And instead, all of the leaders of college football are all just worried about their own entities. Greg Sankey does not care about the future of college football in the state of California. He just doesn't. And maybe he doesn't have to. He's not paid to do that, right? His job is to make the SEC bigger and better, but that is not helping the sport overall. And I think that's, the whole thing is leaderless, right? There is no commissioner of college football. We're going to have, I guess, a guy who's in charge of making sure people are following the accounting rules, but that isn't looking out for the best interests of the game.
No, and it's been long needed. We have Tim Brando on the show all the time, and Brando
voice, such a great voice.
Yeah, and Brando has always been on the, like, one of the things he says, and I didn't even think about it until he brought it up the first time we talked to him, is how the biggest thing that college football has done with the NFL is they just gave away December. Years ago, they just decided, you guys can have it. And then now they have to have their championship game last year on Inauguration Day, which is a mess, and so you're playing in January 20th, like all this calendar's messed up. Well, the calendar's messed up now because they didn't see anything coming, but also because they didn't decide, like, hey, we need to own December like we always did. And then the NFL is like, well, if you're just going to give us days to put the Jaguars and Titans on a Friday, or Saturday, we're going to do it.
But here's the irony. I do think they could still own December. They need to stop fighting January. Stop trying to compete against the first round of the NFL. Look, I'm obsessed with this, with the calendar. I have an idea. I want to move the bowls to the preseason.
Oh, I'm with you on that. Yeah, I like
what
that.
I would do. I still want last year's results to decide bowl matchups for the first game of the year. So instead of wasting your time having who's opting out, right, of what bowl game, and you're not sure whether it's worth watching or not, unless they have a really cool halftime show or a mascot eating another mascot, right?
Yeah.
The Pop-Tart guy, right? It's really not that interesting. But look, they've got to turn December into the college football playoff. I'm with you. It needs to be that, and you end January. The national title game should be January 8th, 9th, 10th at the latest, right? So basically, that's what I believe is the last week of the NFL regular season. And by the way, the NFL regular season is likely to get longer, right?
Yeah.
I think we know what's coming. The Super Bowl is going to be President's Day weekend, right? They are taking that weekend. Okay, you start to move it backwards, and you can see the NFL regular season is likely going to end somewhere in the second week of January. So that means college football essentially has from December 1st through January 10th to do their playoffs. That's plenty of time as far as I'm concerned. And that should be fine. what is distracting are the bowl games that don't count towards the playoff. And more importantly, these bowl games are no longer the economic engines for the local tourist economy. You don't go to the Liberty, nobody goes to the Liberty Bowl to go hang out in Memphis anymore. Nobody goes to the, Independence Bowl to go see what's going on in Shreveport or whatever. But if you moved all those games to August and you started college football preseason bowl games, second week of August. Look, you're in the South these days, public school begins in the first week of August.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But the NFL doesn't begin until after Labor Day. So college football, and think about what's in August, nothing.
Mm-hmm.
You can own that month all by yourself. Instead of just owning that one Labor Day weekend, right? You get to own 3 or 4 weeks, really fun matchups, that would be interconference and all this stuff, very similar to the preseason basketball tournaments, which all count, by the way, and all do matter in expanding your strength of schedule when you care about the tournament. And I think you could actually create destination games again. The Bahamas Bowl. Yeah, I'll go to the Bahamas to go see the Bahamas Bowl.
Yeah, well, especially in August, if you're going to have a better cross-section of people who might still have another week off,
you'll have some of that, and you'll have all the players participate because the game counts. It's the first game of the year rather than, a luxury game at the end. And so I do, but again, you need a commissioner of college football to be thinking what's in the best interest overall. Who's thinking about that calendar? Who's thinking about how do we make bowl games? You don't want to not have people go to Frisco, Texas to go watch a bowl game, but why don't you make it where the game is relevant and it counts and means something? Well, flip it to the preseason and take the same experience and recreate it in August. I just think it's a way for college football to own that month and make December all about the playoff.
Yeah. Well, and it also gives you December to, and look, if there are some of those big games that they move like Christmas Day and all that stuff, you have a little bit more freedom to be like, all right, we're going to have to play this big game on a Friday because of that. But you have that
people are off.
Flexibility.
They'll tolerate that. Exactly. Yeah. They'll tolerate that. It's okay to put these games on different days of the week. Completely agree.
I think the national championship game, since they can't really play it on Saturdays, if they're going to keep it in January, should just be on Friday night because the numbers, I know Friday night's like the dead zone, but I think college football is, if you're going to watch the national championship, it's not going to matter what night it's on.
I will say this. I do feel like the NCAA had kind of established Monday night as championship night, right? Monday night is the national basketball. It's always on Monday night for the national basketball. If the College World Series goes to 3 games, it's a Monday night.
Yeah.
And in fact, I don't think there's anything. I think there's look, I could accept Friday too. I do think we both are saying the same thing. Make sure it hugs the weekend.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't do it Tuesday through Thursday.
Yeah. And the thing I think that kills Monday, like if the NBA title game or NBA playoff game, a big one, was on Sunday of March Madness, they would probably have a similar problem, right? Yes. Nothing else. Like the World Series and the College World Series are nowhere near each other.
Right.
So there's no thing. But like when you have, if you're watching that Sunday night playoff game and it's the Chiefs and the Bills, and then, you've got to get to work on Monday and then get up on Tuesday. And I mean, you're going to lose some casuals for sure. So
what we both exposed is just simply, my God, there's some just idiots running. Nobody's running college football.
Yeah. Everybody is, but no one is. It's it's like the fountainhead. It's just, it's just ridiculous.
I like Yormack. I don't know about you. I think the only conference commissioner I think's worth a darn is the Big 12's commissioner.
Oh,
he thinks I feel like he thinks about fan experience and what maybe the market wants before thinking about what's best only for the schools of the conference.
So here we'll interview him in a couple weeks when we're at Big 12 Media Days. So last year we were at Big 12 Pro Days, which was at the Star, the Cowboys palatial deal there in Frisco, and I brought up to him, I said, this is a really cool event. Glad to be back here. It's easy for us to get to, from Big 12 people. And I said, the media days used to be here and not at AT&T. And he went, really? And then now it's back there. And I can tell you 5 to 10 ideas that he has taken just from people going, hey, what do you think about this? And be like, you know what? That's a good idea. Let's see if we can do that again. He is.
Here, I'll give you another seed to plant with him.
Yeah.
Big 12 ACC, look, should come up. They should start thinking now about their own scheduling.
I did a thing about this on the show 2 weeks ago.
This now.
Yeah. No, they should. If the other two are going to do it, they should. I think we talked about it on yesterday, where they have the SEC and ACC basketball challenge. I think they should do that. All the power conferences should do it. And my idea, I don't know how feasible it is, but like if you're Florida and your matchup is Duke, then you have Duke in men's basketball, women's basketball, baseball, and football.
Oh, wow.
And that's your thing for the whole year, right? And then
that's
the
a
next
fun idea.
And then you rotate around for the conferences. So 1 year it's SEC, ACC, and Big 12, Big 10. Then it's Big 10, ACC, and then you move around and everybody plays each other. To me, that's more interesting.
That's good for the schools, good for students, good for alumni. I mean, how much fun is that? You sort of go, we're going to, here's the thing. College sports is interesting because how many people will watch it, even if they don't like the sport, because of school pride?
Yeah.
Right. There's this community pride or school pride that goes with it. And it's like, if you can create a system that only celebrates that, and what you just described would be, that would be a ton of fun. Miami and Colorado are matched up this year. We're going to play them in football, in basketball, in baseball. Sign me up.
Yeah. Again, if you do things collectively, negotiate rights together, then all these things can happen, Chuck. All right.
See what the haters are going to say. We're trying to make college sports socialist. We're trying to create a better socialism.
Yeah. Listen, there's hybrid forms of government that work all over the world.
That's right.
that do. We haven't figured them out here yet.
Here's what we do know. It needs some governance. What doesn't work? No governance.
Yeah. We're very bad in America about regulating. You can't turn the water on or you can't drink it.
It's always an extreme. Too much regulation or not enough. We never have just right. Yeah.
All right. I have one political nerd question to ask you. Yeah. And I did not want to dive into it because this would be a break for me as well if I'm doing politics all day long, especially now in the crazy times. What was the most triumphant you ever felt after an episode of Meet the Press, and what was the most defeated you ever felt? Because those jobs are very high stakes when it comes to journalism. You personally, your guest can mess up all day long, and they have surrogates that are going to spin it whatever way they want. You cannot mess up.
So that's interesting. I would say the best I felt after a show was one I did on the so-called torture report with Dick Cheney.
Mm-hmm.
It was an interview he agreed to do, and it was a pretty scathing report on a policy that he championed.
Mm-hmm.
But he believed in defending his point of view. And he sat there and took every question. And it's that I always hold it up as the model. This is a politician respecting the premise that he needs to explain himself to the American people.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't make it personal about him. I made it about the policy itself. And it was just it was always a model interview. It was hard. That report was difficult. The topic was difficult. I know it was the type of television, frankly, some people might have wanted to look away from. There's that line in A Few Good Men where Nicholson says, you want me on that wall, but you don't want to talk about it at parties. Well, this is a topic nobody wanted to talk about, right? We know that it's there. So that's the one I felt the best about. I will be honest with you. The moment that will be in my obituary is the one with Kellyanne Conway and Alternative Facts.
Yeah.
And I hated it. I hated the feeling after. I knew what had happened, and I knew what it was going to be.
Yeah.
Now, it's certainly more prescient than anybody ever thought it would be. But it was deflating because you're like, boy, this was day one. This was the first Sunday of this term.
Yeah.
And it never got better. Right. And so it's funny. Others might say, oh, how come you didn't feel triumphant? Well, I never thought it was about making one person, that a good show was making your guest look like they had become a puddle of mud.
Yeah.
That isn't why I believe most people were watching to learn something. And I'll tell you this, the biggest, if I could redo anything in my career, it would be understanding at the very beginning that the number one job of a journalist is to educate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think, I have a friend of mine who believes that the worst thing that happened to journalism was the movie All the President's Men, because it created a whole 2 generations of journalists who all wanted to be Woodward and Bernstein and break the big story. And we're always looking for scandal around every corner. And if you're always looking for scandal, number one, I promise you'll find it, because there's always something not on the up and up. But think about the damage that's done if you think, you think every nail, if you think every problem is a nail and every solution is a hammer, right? You're going to have a lot of holes in the wall. And if you pursue journalism, assuming you're looking for the great accountability scandal thing to make yourself famous, are you educating the public, or are you just looking for stories that glamorize you, right? Mm-hmm. And that's what's gotten lost. That's why, to me, why is traditional media losing to this medium, to Substack? Because what did we do here? We didn't spend 5 minutes trashing college football, governance. We spent 35 minutes with a nuanced conversation about it. Mm-hmm. And I think it's terrific that the market is speaking and people want more context, not less, longer conversations, not shorter. And which tells me the public wants to be educated more than it wants to be persuaded or preached to. And I think that's where that's where it's sort of like, all right, I'm spending, my North Star is, when you think about it, always remember there's somebody listening who's simply trying to learn something.
Yeah. It's funny. The inverse of that for me is true on election coverage. I would rather watch, and I was been NBC, like from the baby, I was an NBC guy. My mom tells me I used to listen to Brokaw, and that was like relaxing for me.
Man, we've always been the political. I always said NBC was always the political chip. Brokaw told this to me. Before Brokaw and Russer, there was David Brinkley. He sort of established, NBC, it has real roots in that. As Brokaw once said to me, he goes, CBS kicked our ass in Vietnam, but nobody beat us in politics.
Yeah. And so I was like, and I'm going to ask you this before we go, but I was like the network coverage over cable, because cable like throws 50 people in a room. It's like a stadium and it's like really chaotic. And I know you've had to do MSNBC stuff too, where you're probably in the room and you're like, my God, there's so many people in here. You kind of had your little thing of districts and all that. So you had your corner.
Oh, it was good to have. It's good to have something tangible like that on those nights. Trust me.
Because if you're just sitting at the desk with 12 of the people
trying to shout in.
Yeah, I'm sure it's crazy, but network news, because they have to deal with, the local news and all this, you guys only have 17 minutes in this little pocket or whatever to talk about what's going on in the national elections before we got to kick it back or whatever you're doing. So I feel like I get more facts per capita in those than the room full of people that they're trying to fill 24 hours of that day.
It is the one night where everybody accepts the premise that the data is the story.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Are we, so now that you're independent and you've got the Chuck Toddcast, will we see you on election coverage? I mean, I've look, you and Kornacki were kind of my guys, and what's going on in Maine's 8th district tonight. I would not know, but I appreciate that you can tell me.
All right. Well, there's not 8 districts in Maine yet. Maybe we'll get there. I'm somebody who wants to double the size of Congress, but it would only get us 4 in Maine, for what it's worth.
Yeah.
I plan on, I will definitely, I will definitely be around on election nights.
Okay.
I love election nights. Whether I do it myself independently, whether I associate, I will say this, I do embrace this sort of, I don't plan to work for one entity ever again. I like this idea that I do a little something for this app called Newsphere. I've got my own thing with the Chuck Toddcast. I've got another business thing that I'm trying to start with local news. Got, a book contract over there. It's that sort of, now I'm lucky enough to be in a position where I can do that. Not everybody is, but I also think that's kind of where journalism is going. And I suspect I will have a relationship with some entity with live election results for election nights in perpetuity. Question is where, you know, it won't, I know it won't be with NBC. It probably won't be with a legacy network, but you know, you never say never.
Yeah. Well, Chuck, I certainly appreciate this. Has been one of my favorite interviews I've ever done.
Very kind of you.
Yeah, really love talking to you. Hopefully we can make some time again just to talk about college football. Maybe when Miami and Florida State play, we'll just get on and talk trash to each other.
We're playing early this year.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, it's on the early side in October. Miami, my son is going to SMU.
Okay.
So I have a daughter at Miami, a son at SMU. My wife's at Florida State. So we're an all ACC family now somehow. And Miami's first game outside the state of Florida is in Dallas at SMU on November 1st. So
are you going to go?
Oh, I'm going. We're all going. The whole family's going.
Let me tell you, I went to the absolute pants down spanking that FSU took last year because we're in Waco. We're 90 miles away. So
maybe that's when we can catch up. I'm going. Yeah, I'm going to be going to Dallas a lot. I'm shocked at how much I've enjoyed it already.
Yeah, so I went up there. I took my wife for the first time she'd been at an FSU game, and which is the worst one to take her to. But they are really doing it up at SMU. Their game day is fun, Chuck. Their game day is fun.
Yeah, place exudes money.
Yeah,
you're like, oh man. I mean, like, how rich is that school? Oh, we don't need to take any. We won't take any of your media rights money for 10 years. We're fine. You're like,
yeah.
Oh wow!
Yeah, no.
How much are they spending?
Yeah, no. What's that? Oh no. That's that. Look, here's a crazy story. I know I've kept you longer, but I went to high school in Fort Myers. So like, I'm from South Florida. I wound up here, but because my parents moved here years ago. But I wound up in Central Texas. I'm sitting at this game, and I look to my left, and a girl I went to high school with is right there, yelling, and she was an FSU fan too. So I kind of knew she was in Dallas, and we talked. She married into some SMU moolah, and she's like, "Oh, our tickets," and she showed me. They're right there. I'm like, "Those are the best in the field." She's like, "Yeah, well, my husband's been here forever. We live walking distance," and I'm like, "Oh, dang! Congratulations, you've done well for yourself."
Oh yeah, no, that neighborhood. I thought Miami was in a nice neighborhood in Coral Gables. Oh man, it's a slum compared to SMU's neighborhood. By the way, imagine what SMU's football program would be if they never had the death penalty.
Oh, it would be.
They'd be Notre Dame.
They'd be Notre Dame. They absolutely would be Notre Dame. Yeah, they want to be. That everybody was there. They're thrilled. I think you're gonna have a blast. We'll reconnect again, Chuck. I love talking college football with you. Okay. And if you ever want me on the Chuck Toddcast to talk politics, I'll do it.
You got it.
All right.
You got it.
Chuck
Well,
Todd,
we might call a little college football governance.
There we go.
Important thing.
Anytime.
I've done Feinbaum's show once. We got to get Feinbaum and debate him this. There's part of me that thinks Feinbaum doesn't believe half the stuff he says about the SEC.
I think sometimes he says it, and then a day later he's like, well, hold on. He doesn't think about it before he goes, right? He just goes.
I know. This is the Pat McAfee-ication of ESPN or something. I don't know.
You could do election coverage in a tank top. See if that'll get
you don't want to, just like I don't want to see him in a tank top. You don't want to see me in a tank top. Anyway.
Chuck Todd with us here on 365 Sports. Thank you, Chuck. The Chuck Toddcast. We will talk to him again soon. This is 365 Sports.
Overwhelmed by your inbox? Clean Email is here to help. Organize, clean, and manage your emails with powerful automation tools. Say goodbye to spam and clutter and enjoy a stress-free inbox. Try Clean Email today at cleanemail.com. That's CLEAN email.com. Founded in 1910, Samsonite is the world leader in durable, high-quality luggage and travel accessories. Made to the highest standards, our products won't let you down. We give you the confidence to get out there and explore. Inspired by the past, devoted to the present, and built to inspire a multi-generational future, Samsonite is here to elevate your journey. Travel with Samsonite and pack confidence every step of the way. Shop now at shop.samsonite.com. Samsonite.
This is Paul Catalina's Top 5.
Welcome into Paul Catalina's Top 5. Hey, it's Friday. That means you don't have to do anything for the next 2 days. Or you just watch this over and over again. We need the views. A little cashola. Uncle Paulie's pocket. And everybody else who works here. But still, it's my Top 5. Brought to you by Flag and Anthem. Please use our promo code 365sports at checkout. They got some really great stuff at Flag and Anthem. If you're a golfer, anything like that. I had a t-shirt they sent me the other day. I was just wearing around the house. Most comfortable t-shirt I've ever worn in my life. Big 12 transfer newcomers, Jayhawks edition. Let's jump in. Number 5, linebacker Bengali Kamara. Great name. Great name. Comes from South Carolina. Has that experience in the SEC. Steps into a Kansas defense that does need reinforcements. Look, this team was 5-7 last year, due in large part to the fact that it took Jalen Daniels a long time to get back to his normal self. Now he appears to be back to his normal self. So you got to build up both sides of the ball and capitalize on the last year of one of the most talented quarterbacks who's ever played at KU. Bengali Kamara on defense allows them to stop the run really well, allows them to do some good things in pass coverage because he can mix it up really well. Number 4, safety Jaleel Hurley comes in from Alabama. Super athletic, didn't have a ton of time there, but they've got another guy out of the SEC that comes in and can step in and play right away for the Jayhawks. We'll see, how he fits into that defense, but we know, look, he was playing for the Tide. He's super athletic. Can you make that athleticism into football player skill? We'll see, but Jaleel Hurley, super, super athletic. Number 3, linebacker Joseph Sipp. You're seeing a theme here for Kansas. They want to stop you better on defense than they have over the last few years. He comes in from Bowling Green, surprisingly good. Bowling Green team last year, it wasn't just their offense that was explosive. Their defense could make stops. Joseph Sipp is a fantastic tackler. This is perfect for him and rushes the passer really, really, really well. Number 2, cornerback DJ Graham. Again, a theme throughout all of this for Kansas. They wanted to get better on defense. DJ Graham comes in from Oklahoma again, an SEC player, played in Brent Venables' defense, so you know he can handle complex things. And that was the strength of Oklahoma's team last year. Wasn't really getting on the field as much there at Oklahoma, wanted a different opportunity, comes to Kansas, and should be a nice addition for the Jayhawks. And finally, number 1, a center. We've moved to the other side of the ball. Tyler Mercer was with the Mean Green at North Texas last year. Highly sought after in the portal. Really good center. Leads the offensive line really well and should be a nice addition for Jalen Daniels as he has his captain along the offensive line. This is a really good player. It sucked for North Texas to lose him, but he gets an opportunity in the Big 12, and he should help the Jayhawks and their zone blocking scheme and running game do really, really well. That's going to do it for the show. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you to Chuck Todd. Thank you to Stewart Mandel, John McClain, and Zach Barnett today. We're back again on Monday. Remember, next Friday is the 4th of July, so we won't be here, but I've got more Big 12 transfer newcomer stuff coming next week as well. Have a great weekend, everybody.